The man received rewards from both the goddess and the demon lord, but he didn't hesitate to abandon them, because he knew it was a long-planned trap. He had gained the ability to return to the previous day every time he died. So, through repeated suicides, he returned to the world 11 years ago. His goal, to take revenge on the universally admired superhero, the Flame Emperor. Little did people know, their revered hero was secretly a wicked, perverted devil. It was only because I accidentally saw him kill his beloved Saintess. For this reason, the Flame Emperor chased after me. He planned to kill me to silence me, but as the weakest S-rank hunter, I was completely powerless to resist his attack. I only have one skill that allows me to copy others' talents, and it can only be triggered when I am killed by someone else. At this moment, the Flame Emperor pressed his palm, engulfed in flames, against my head. Under his devilish smile, my body turned to ashes, but my consciousness entered a mysterious space. A ding sounded. The system informed me I'd met the trigger conditions for a passive skill, and could randomly draw a skill from the person who killed me. I looked at the system panel in despair. I was already dead. What's the point of drawing a skill card? After thinking for a moment, I decided not to give up on this opportunity. I figured it was like playing a lottery game after death. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back to the previous day. This left me puzzled, because it was the first time I used a skill. I can't make sense of what's going on right now. Randomly, I waved my hand. 2 skill cards instantly appeared in front of me. One is my initial skill, which can randomly copy someone else's skill for my own use. The other one is the skill of the Flame Emperor, Returner. Once the user dies, they return to 24 hours ago, and their memories and abilities are retained. At this moment, I suddenly understood. No wonder the Flame Emperor was able to rise to the peak of his life so smoothly. It turns out he relied on this ability to know what would happen in the future. I clenched my fists, gritting my teeth. I must kill the Flame Emperor, avenge my hatred. If I rashly kill him now, he will definitely use this ability to return to the previous day. I must act before the Flame Emperor awakens. I have to kill him. I remember he seems to have completed his awakening 11 years ago. That means, I have to die more than 4,000 times, to return to that time. Just then, someone suddenly shouted, "Fire!" outside the room. Only I know. This fire was set by Emperor Yen. He wanted to cause a disturbance. Then he planned to calm things down. He aimed to become the center of attention. At this moment, he was still pretending to be unconcerned, walking through the crowd. He kept exaggerating. Without him, the fire wouldn't have been put out. Seeing his hypocritical behavior, I am so angry. This guy is all talk on the surface, but behind the scenes, he's something else. Only I know his true face. He's nothing but a ruthless murderer. At this moment, I picked up the dagger. I resolutely walked towards Emperor Yen. I didn't plan to kill him, but to rush into the fire, and end my life. The next second, the raging flames would engulf my body. Before I died, I stared intently at the Flame Emperor. Only in this way, could I kill him. And just as I planned, I returned to 24 hours earlier. Next, I'll begin my plan to die. After dying over 4,000 times without stopping, I finally managed to return before the Flame Emperor's awakening. To ensure the plan's success, I even made sure to die an extra 30 times. Then, I changed my clothes and walked out the door. Now it's time to go find him. To gain control of the Flame Emperor, every move and action, I have watched this day repeat over a dozen times. I already understand his current situation very clearly. At 3 p.m. this afternoon, he will go to the second floor of the tower to hunt shape-shifting monsters. But what surprised me is, at the age of 20, he was also a low-level hunter who spent all his time fantasizing about making a name for himself. According to the course of history, he will awaken his skill card in a week, heading towards the peak of life. But he probably won't live to see that moment. I will personally kill him with this short knife. Because Emperor Yen has been killing shape-shifting monsters all day, he finds it meaningless. At 5 p.m., he goes to the 6th level hunting ground, a place where even ordinary F-level hunters dare not go. For the next 40 minutes, he is the only one in this hunting ground. At this moment, I pretend to be on the brink of death. I tell him I'm surrounded by wolves. I beg him to give me some healing potions, but he spits at me in annoyance. He tells me I have to pay a hefty price for his healing potions. Before I can react, he immediately transforms into a bandit and robs me of my wallet. Then, in order to prevent me from seeking revenge after I left, he decided to kill me. The next second, I raised the spear in my hand and thrust it toward him. I seized the moment, and delivered a swift, cut off the future, kick to the Emperor of Flame's groin. Then, I quickly drew my short sword, and swung it directly toward his neck. Looking at his blood-spattered body, I thought that being on the brink of death might trigger a skill awakening. I immediately charged at him with my dagger, intending to land a few more strikes. After ensuring there were no future threats, I stabbed his corpse over 10,000 times, to vent the hatred in my heart. Once I was done, to destroy the body and erase all traces, I called in a pack of wild wolves to devour his corpse completely. After killing the Flame Emperor, I changed into the clothes I had prepared in advance, and planned to go to the sawmill. At this moment, I arrived at the tavern. Feeling great, I decided to drink a few more cups. My snacks are these seemingly overpowered skills, but I realized that all of them are passive skills. None of them are combat skills. At this moment, I noticed an extraordinary-looking old man in the corner. He looked very familiar. After thinking for a moment, I remembered that he was the Sword Saint, the divine dragon swordsman, holding the sword's tail. In my previous life, his disappearance for 11 years led to him being gradually forgotten. But he is still a legend. Before the Flame Emperor became famous, he was the top-ranked hunter. It then occurred to me that since he's so strong, he must also have S-rank skills, and likely many combat-type skills. At that moment, I had an idea. That is, to let him kill me, and then copy those powerful skills for myself. At this moment, the Sword Saint suddenly shouted. It startled me. I thought he had figured out what I was thinking. I turned my head and saw him talking to himself alone. He looked like a fool. This confused me a bit. It seems that at the top of the world, everyone is somewhat abnormal. At that moment, I saw online that it's absolutely forbidden to repeat what the Sword Saint says. A previous hunter team mocked the old man's family, saying they were all bad people. In a fit of rage, the Sword Saint killed the entire team. Not a single one was left alive. But to me, that was a surefire way to get killed. Not long after, the Sword Saint paid and was about to leave the tavern. Seeing this, I quietly followed him behind. I was wondering what kind of skills the Sword Saint would have. His skills should be even more powerful than the rules allow, right? Just then, the Sword Saint suddenly turned around. He had obviously discovered that I was following him. This made me a little scared. After all, in this godforsaken place, no one would know if anything happened. So I shakily walked out, and explained that I only wanted to ask him for one thing. The Sword Saint's face was grim. He didn't believe a word I said. From his perspective, I had deliberately revealed myself. This left me completely bewildered. He must have misunderstood me. I'm not an idiot. Why would I intentionally expose myself? Look at the way he's holding his sword. It feels like he's about to rush over and chop off my head any second. I was so nervous, I didn't know what to do. I had no idea what to do next. At that moment, the Sword Saint spoke and said my acting was really good. No wonder he's a top-tier assassin. Now I have even less idea what's going on. I'm just an S-rank waste. I'm nowhere near a top-tier assassin. Well, now it's clear. I don't need to mention his family. He'll choose to kill me anyway. The Sword Saint immediately drew his sword on me. He told me he had a special skill. He could see how many people someone had killed. It seems the Sword Saint has already figured out that I've taken a life. So I quickly explained to him. The person I killed was a ruthless, murderous psychopath. I did it to rid the world of a menace. And I swear to the heavens. At that moment, the Sword Saint calmly removed his hat. He says I'm a shameless killer. Even though I've killed so many people, I still won't admit it. This makes me even more confused. I've only killed one person, after all. Then he pointed his sword at me. He was spouting nonsense. I'm not so senile that I can't recognize the number on your head. It clearly says 4091 on your forehead. These people all died at your hands. Although I've done some dishonorable things in my life, I never thought you'd go on such a killing spree. This is bad, now I can't explain it. Even if I tell him that all these deaths were caused by me alone, he definitely won't believe it. At this moment, I'm about to turn and run. Now, copying the Sword Saint's skills isn't that important anymore. The most troublesome thing is that every time he sees me in the future, he'll try to kill me. The next second, the Sword Saint appeared behind me, holding his long sword. While I was running away, I tripped over a stone. By sheer luck, I narrowly avoided the Sword Saint's first strike. Just when he was about to execute me, he turned and said something to the air. I was utterly confused. Is this the legendary skill? Telepathy, maybe? It sounds amazing, but this rare skill really does exist. This is bad. He's definitely telling his teammates about me. It'll go from 1 to 10, then from 10 to 100. By then, everyone will think I'm a murderer. After that, I'll become a wanted criminal by the Bureau, hunted endlessly by the top hunters. All these terrible thoughts flooded my mind. I stood up, trembling. I have to die right now. If it goes past 24 hours, there's no turning back. Then I sarcastically asked if his descendants were doing well. I heard you're a nobleman. It should be easy to provoke bandits, right? I haven't finished speaking yet, but suddenly, it felt like the whole world had turned upside down. In an instant, the Sword Saint had separated my head from my body. When will I ever reach that level? Soon after, my consciousness arrived in a different space. I saw a system prompt saying the skill card had been generated. I was overjoyed. Finally, I could have the Sword Saint's skills. But what I didn't expect was, the Sword Saint doesn't have any golden skill cards at all. This created a huge sense of disappointment in me. It reminds me of before the Flame Emperor became famous. The Sword Saint was the only legendary hunter, yet he doesn't even have a single tier 2 skill. Now, I can only rely on luck to draw the most powerful skill from the yellow and silver cards. I randomly grab a fighter. I drew a silver skill card. I just hope this skill isn't the worst one. As soon as I open my eyes again, I can't wait to open the skill window, to see what skill I've copied. Luckily, it's an A-rank skill. The sword constellation doesn't seem like one of those useless skills that shows how many people the enemy has killed. I then lie down on the bed, helpless, and sigh, another passive skill. Isn't there a more impressive skill? Then I turned my head and found someone lying next to me. I don't know when he got there. Then our eyes met. The atmosphere was a bit awkward. This muscular man discovered that I could actually see him. He asked me where the old man Wang Fugue had gone. I said, huh? Are you talking about the old sword saint? The muscular man said that he was still a newbie. Calling him the sword saint is an exaggeration. This makes me wonder, who exactly is this guy? How dare he call the sword saint a beginner? I then checked the skill description for the sword zodiac. This guy is the strongest man in another world. He became a vengeful spirit after failing to clear the 100th floor of the giant tower, and ultimately perished. No one can see him except for the skill user. With a nervous heart, I told him that I accidentally copied you over. Now, you belong to me. The burly man instantly turned into the first emoji in your phone's emoji pack. He immediately started crying and complaining that 7-day no reason returns are all the rage now. He wanted me to return him to Sword Saint. I scratched my head, not knowing how to explain to him. This isn't something I can control. Now I finally understand why the Sword Saint always talks to himself. I actually spend my whole life avoiding the Sword Saint only to get stuck with this skill. The burly man immediately retorted that the Sword Saint is a good person. As long as you don't mention his grandson and granddaughter, everything else is fine. At this moment, I pointed at my head, indicating that the Sword Saint, upon seeing me, has killed 4,091 people. The burly man looked at me, thinking I was too weak to withstand the wind. It was impossible for me to have killed so many people. I then told him the whole story and how everything happened. Afterward, the burly man asked why I decided to copy the old man's skills right after taking revenge. I told him that the Sword Saint is currently the #1 hunter on the leaderboard. If I could copy his skills, I would definitely become stronger quickly. After hearing my explanation, the strong man looked around me for a moment. His physique isn't bad. He's a good potential candidate. After observing, he asked me to demonstrate my strength. So, I went to the tower. I easily killed a few shapeshifters to show him. After seeing my performance, the strong man sighed, realizing that his judgment was correct. I wiped the monster's blood off my face, and asked him what he just said. He then made a gesture like I was trash. He just wanted to see if I was worth training, before letting me out to hunt. Hearing that, I felt a little disappointed. He was right. I really wasn't good at fighting, but he refuted my point of view. He saw other strengths in my fight. I have a unique ability. That is, I'm not afraid. When facing an oncoming monster, I don't feel the slightest hesitation. Most people, when fighting, would instinctively protect their vital body parts. I was a bit surprised when I heard that. Perhaps it's because I've experienced over 4,000 deaths. I've already overcome the fear of death. Normally, with effort, everyone can develop unique abilities. Then, Jingdi told me that the hardest thing to overcome is the fear of death. And now I have achieved it. It's truly incredible. I was deeply moved by this sentence. I have always felt like I was worthless growing up. I never imagined I would discover such a powerful ability in myself. At this point, the Sword Emperor asked me what I was thinking when the old man killed me. I just thought the moon I saw at that moment was beautiful. From now on, I won't need to look up to see the moon. The Sword Emperor laughed loudly after hearing this. Interesting. You really are quite interesting, kid. Since you can replicate skills, there must be another version of me by your side. Next, let me help you surpass that old man, and become the strongest hunter. I grinned. Then let's conquer the giant tower together. In the time ahead, every morning, before daybreak, the Sword Emperor wakes me up to train. He says that besides being fearless, I have no other merits. So he's starting to teach me from the most basic physical conditioning. During this time, I occasionally kill the Flame Emperor, to add some fun to my boring life. The most annoying thing is that I still have to gamble desperately every day. I even won the lottery once during this period. Converted to Huagua currency, it's roughly around 300 million. With this money, I could comfortably live out the rest of my life. But conquering the giant tower is my ultimate goal. Money is just a stepping stone to achieve this goal. Then he told the person in charge to deposit all this money into the vault. Also, buy a secondary honorary member position in your business alliance. Jian Di grinned, you're really smart. With the protection of the battle group, your path ahead will be much smoother. Jin Huan said that was natural. If I follow the old path of Yan Di, I'll eventually become a target for the major battle groups. Even if I'm strong, there's no guarantee I won't be backstabbed one day. So, developing quietly is the wisest choice. To be safe, Jin Huan had the person in charge conceal his identity as the winner. However, Jin Huan's rise was just beginning. Now, he was going to use this money to do something big. The first thing this young man did after being reborn was buy a lottery ticket. He directly won a massive jackpot of 66,666,000,000. However, the money he had just received hadn't even warmed in his hands before it was about to fly away. Because I urgently need pills and secret manuals to increase my power. This also means I need a lot of money. I scoffed. It's just peanuts. How much can a few pills cost? The cheap emperor smirked. Come here, he said, a little closer. I'll tell you how much these pills will cost. A demonic whisper followed, startling me. My eyes nearly popped out of my head. Bro, this is way too expensive. Even if I sold everything I own, I could only afford 4 bottles. As the two were chasing each other, the Sword Emperor suddenly stopped. He then told Jin Han seriously to hurry up and hide. Jin Han looked ahead in shock. Then they ducked into a nearby alley. It turned out the person walking towards them was Sword Saint. Hiding behind the trash can, Jin Han hardly dared to breathe. If he revealed even a hint of his presence, he might be discovered. Fortunately, the old man didn't notice anything in the end. He turned and left. Jin Han narrowly escaped death. Meanwhile, Sword Emperor suddenly seemed to remember something. He rushed forward and shouted, "Follow me." When they arrived, the Sword Emperor saw that he was too late. The old man had already gone inside. It turned out this was the shop where they were going to buy but now everything was ruined. The old man beat him to it and bought all the medicine. And this store is the best one around here. Just as Sword Emperor was feeling down, Jin Han had already opened Dog Brother to search for information. But after searching, he found that the person he was looking for didn't appear in the hunter rankings. However, this was exactly the result Jin Han wanted. He calmly told Sword Emperor not to worry. "I've figured it out. This time, I won't go bankrupt. In fact, I can get the highest grade for just a small amount of money, and I'll also let you meet the world's most powerful alchemist." The two of them then arrived at a dilapidated place. This filthy and messy environment wasn't even as good as the nearby slums. This made the Sword Emperor doubt. "Does the alchemist you mentioned really exist in a place like this?" Jin Han replied, "Don't doubt it. We've arrived. The person we're looking for is him. He was once the most powerful alchemist, famous across the entire continent. He was also the imposing lord of the alchemy city. But his youth was quite miserable. The top-tier potions he painstakingly made were not recognized by anyone. Instead, because of their high prices, he was mistaken for a black market trader. But only he knew the truth. This price is almost the cost of the potion itself. After this, the shop also went bankrupt. He was unable to repay the debts he owed. The potion was also taken by the creditors. Seeing such a miserable scene, GND said, "No way. Is this coward really the genius alchemist you were talking about?" Jin Han was brimming with confidence, because only he knew this woman's true worth. He approached Ihan and asked, "Boss, are you still open for business?" Hearing that there was business, Ihan quickly dried her tears, and said, "I can make any kind of potion. But how expensive a potion are you looking for?" He was stunned when he heard the startled reply. He was stunned. "What? 20,000 gold coins." Ihan was a little flustered by the sudden surprise. He quickly invited Jin Han inside. As soon as he pushed the door open, he accidentally tore it off its hinges. And the house was so messy that it was impossible to walk inside. Then Jin Han got straight to the point and said that he had already spoken to the Merchant Alliance. "How much money is needed to buy the materials? Just go and get it yourself. As for the commission fee, you can take it from the vault." Ihan was a bit surprised by Jin Han's kindness, but he still mentioned that he was a person of principles. If the poison is to be made, it's absolutely impossible. Jin Han quickly explained that it's not poison. He then shared the materials provided by the Sword Emperor with Ihan. Looking at these strange materials, Ihan fell into thought. Suddenly, he said excitedly, "This formula is amazing. The elixir made according to this formula can greatly enhance reflexes." The Sword Emperor thought it was somewhat unbelievable. He could tell the secret behind it with just one glance, and it only took 4 days to make. Jin Han was extremely happy. You have to know, when he was the master of the alchemy city, people had to wait for a year or more just to get him to refine medicine. A few days later, Ihan held several potions as he arrived at Jin Han's residence. After completing the commission, he curiously asked Jin Han why he would entrust such a big business to a no-name pharmacist like me. The reason is actually simple. First, he knows that Ihan is a rare talent in alchemy. Second, he values Ihan's kindness and unique perspective. That's why he trusts him so much. Upon hearing these sincere words, Ihan felt a little touched. Just like that, the two not only became partners, but also good friends. After they said goodbye, GND started teasing him, "Hey, did you fall for her?" The next day, arriving on the 3rd floor of the giant tower, Jin Han prepared to test the effects of the elixir. However, the moment he drank it, the effect of the drug, 100 times stronger than adrenaline, is incredible. The moment Jin Han drank it, he suddenly felt a strong tension in his heart. Then, his body became unusually sensitive, and all his bodily functions were dramatically enhanced. He could even see a fly's droppings in midair. With perfect clarity, Jin Han, who was experiencing it for the first time, he unconsciously let out a cold laugh, and asked if there was something flowing in your heart. Don't be afraid. That is what is called inner strength. Normally, in this situation, one would usually need meditation to channel the inner strength. but that's too cliched. The Emperor specially prepared a devilish training for him, because someone like him, born without talent, has to endure some hardship. The orc had already raised his mace and was behind him, but to him, the orc seemed to be moving in slow motion. He easily dodged the monster's attack, and could see its every move clearly. But even if he could see through the monster completely, it wasn't enough to counterattack, because Jinghuan's inner energy hasn't circulated yet. His meridians are like a series of blocked pipes. Only through constant training can he open his ren and do meridians. And so, Jinhuan was relentlessly pursued by the orcs. One moment of carelessness, and he'd be minced meat. Finally, under the constant threat of death from the monsters, Jinhuan decided to stop running. Instead of backing down, she stood in front of him and faced him head-on. She could be seen gathering internal energy in her leg. Then she drew the dagger from her back. With a powerful leap, she flew toward the half-orc. She thrust it forcefully into his neck, but because the half-orc's skin was very thick, the strike didn't kill him instantly. Upon seeing this, he quickly told Jinhuan to focus all his internal energy on the tip of the knife. In the next moment, Jinhuan exerted all his strength, and instantly released all his internal energy. With one swift motion, he performed a gut-wrenching strike on the half-orc. As Jinhuan's dagger kept stabbing in, the half-orc finally couldn't withstand the attack. He collapsed to the ground. Jinhuan's body was pushed to the limit, causing him to suffer in a state worse than death. However, the Sword Emperor said that the real show had just begun. Jinhuan was completely confused. What are you talking about? It turned out that the Sword Emperor never planned to let him live through the training, because even if Jinhuan died, he could be revived again. So it didn't matter how intense the training was. Then the Sword Emperor smiled and said, "Come on, die 500 times first to practice." Jinhuan immediately realized he had been tricked. This guy must be out of his mind. As soon as he finished speaking, another half-orc silently approached from behind. A single blow smashed him to pieces. Then, Jinhuan found himself in his personal death space. He then explained to the Sword Emperor that this was the place he had been staying temporarily before his return. It was also where he chose his skill cards. Mid-sentence, they were both stunned by the scene before them. Holy crap, he can even copy monster skills. Gold Phantom and Sword Emperor were dumbfounded. They didn't expect that he could even copy monster skills after dying. Sword Emperor felt that it was so unfair. Why was this guy so lucky, and had so many cheats? Just as Jinhuan was about to casually pick a skill card, the Sword Emperor suddenly called out to him. He didn't understand why Jinhuan wasn't choosing a good skill card, and instead picked this useless skill. Jinhuan doubted if he was out of his mind. He couldn't see the skill description after all. Of course, he had to just pick one randomly. However, the Sword Emperor insisted that he could see everything clearly. Hearing this, Jinhuan was stunned. He had always only been able to see the backs of the cards, no matter what. But now, with the Sword Emperor's help, didn't this mean he wouldn't have to blindly draw skill cards anymore and could choose freely? He quickly asked the Sword Emperor to describe the skill effects. Then the Sword Emperor began to introduce the details of the skill cards. The first card, Wall of Propagation. After a tiger uses it, they will be in heat all year round. After using the second Genie Time card, you can quickly learn singing, dancing, rapping, and playing basketball. Jinhuan was completely dumbfounded. What the heck is all this nonsense? Jiandi, standing next to him, gloated. He even suggested that Jinhuan choose the skill every man needs. But Jinhuan wasn't stupid. How could he possibly choose that? He'd definitely choose Genie Time, and he had already seen through the Sword Emperor's little trick. It turns out the Sword Emperor intentionally reversed the skill order. He wanted him to choose that awkward skill to release the ball. In the end, it was still seen through by Jinhuan. He chose Juridomy. After the skill selection, the two returned home. Seeing that Jinhuan hadn't been tricked, the Sword Emperor ground his teeth in frustration. Jinhuan, who was cursing on the side, told him to stop fooling around. He should hurry up and continue cultivating. The two of them then arrived at the third floor of the giant tower. Jinhuan was full of energy. He grabbed a dagger and was ready to fight the monster to the death. This time, he didn't choose to retreat. Instead, he went all in. But at the moment the orc swung its spiked club toward him. Jinhuan's manager is so beautiful that her skills suddenly triggered automatically. She spoke a sentence in Kuan language to the half-orc. Unexpectedly, the half-orc actually understood. The naive half-orc thought he had encountered a fellow villager. However, the next second, Jinhuan slit his throat with a knife. Just like that, the small and cute half-orc was assassinated. The maid watching the scene from behind was furious. I knew you would do something like this. That's so despicable. Jinhuan comforted the spy. Calm down, let's go conquer the fourth floor. Facing this final boss, Jinhuan came up with the most shameless way to kill it. He gathered a pale pink light around him, then suddenly leaped forward, and shouted, "Gurgle gurgle bro," into the air. The Pudding King, wait a minute, and my mixed race buddy. While he was stunned, Jinhuan stabbed the monster with his +99 dagger. Then he said gravely, "Farewell, my once formidable opponent." The lowly servant girl watching couldn't stand it anymore. She complained that Jinhwan only knew how to use this sneak attack. That half-orc last time died the same way. Jinhwan, honestly, you're so despicable. Actually, Jinhwan didn't want to win in such a dirty way, but after being killed 6 times by the Goblin King, he only copied this useless interspecies communication skill. He also had no other choice. At that moment, a notification suddenly popped up behind Jinhwan. Your sense of presence has increased. Skill bar updated. Hunter level increased to level 1. Jinhwan, with a face full of happiness, enjoyed the sensation. It's been over 20 years. He had finally leveled up for the first time. At that moment, the Sword Emperor nearby noticed something unusual. This light effect is not only used to celebrate the upgrade, but it also represents a kind of indication. For example, the Flame Emperor, his representative ability is fire. So his inner power form is naturally fire. So based on the color of the light effect just now and understanding of Jinhwan, Sword Emperor believes that his inner power form is either fire or blood. Jinhwan said this will be explained in detail later. Let's go attack the 10th floor now. Sword Emperor seriously warned Jinhwan that with his current strength, attacking the 10th floor is just a dream. But Jinhwan didn't think so. He was not only very confident, he even wanted to bet with the Sword Emperor. Jinhwan said if I can clear it using only 2 lives, you have to tell me what the skill card of the 10th floor monster is. And don't ever call me, son of a hacker, again. You must respectfully address me as Lord Kim. Sword Emperor heard this and immediately spat in disdain. Then suddenly, he yelled at Kim Hwan, fine, no problem, but if you fail, from now on you must always call me master. And so, the two made a bet for a battle of pride. The two of them arrived at the entrance of the 10th floor of the tower. Just as they were about to enter, they were stopped by a guard. It was too dangerous inside. A fatal accident could happen at any moment. Frustrated and impatient, they stepped forward. With deep emotion, they grabbed the guard's hand and said, I'm going in to die. A year ago, my lover passed away. I was also diagnosed with terminal cancer. In short, it was a mix of deception and emotional manipulation. The young man was so moved that tears streamed down his face. Crying, he handed him a bundle of money, and then he let him inside. The two of them then arrived at the door of a mansion. Just as Jinhwan opened the large door to enter, a row of eerie, terrifying dolls came into view. Their eyes were fixed directly on Jinhwan. Then they said in unison, do you want to play with us? This eerie mansion is a lingering nightmare for every hunter in the world, because everyone who's been here either ends up mentally disturbed, or burned to death in a raging fire, and very few people have ever cleared this level. But even so, Jinhwan still resolutely ventured in alone. With the challenge prompt starting above his head, the raging fire in the mansion continues to close in on Jinhwan. The only way to clear this level is to find the true form of the final boss among the countless dolls in front of him. That is, the Hellfire's lamp. But the situation isn't looking good. The power of the Hellfire is simply too strong. Even if he uses his internal energy to form a protective state, it can only last for 10 minutes. Jinhwan is about to collapse. The Sword Emperor mocks him intensely. He even says that Sword Saint, that old man, managed to hold on for 30 minutes. Unlike him, who's so pathetic. In the blink of an eye, most of the time has passed. Jinhwan still hasn't made any progress. At this point, the Sword Emperor no longer hides the truth. He tells him that there are actually 2 ways to clear the trial here. One is relying on a 1/10,000 chance to find the real doll. The second is having enough inner strength to resist the flames, until the real boss reveals its true form. After saying that, he continued to mock Jinhwan. This time, the bet was certain to end in his loss. Soon, Jinhwan's inner strength would be exhausted. Now, he could only leave it to fate. He could just randomly pick a doll. But as expected, he chose the wrong target. Jinhwan looked in horror at the doll melting in front of him, wondering if it was really necessary to make it so realistic. At this point, his shield could no longer hold up and shattered. In the end, he was burned to death by the raging flames. The first attempt to attack the 10th floor ended in failure. After his death, Jinhwan entered the space. Now it's time for him to choose a skill card. Then, Sword Emperor described the golden card to him. S-class skill, Hellfire Barrier. Once used, an unquenchable hellfire will ignite within a 2-kilometer radius. Unless the user cancels the skill, they cannot leave this space. Sword Emperor saw this skill and thought it was amazing. He quickly urged Jinhwan to pick it. However, the observant Jinhwan felt that something was off. He asked the Sword Emperor to introduce the effects of the remaining skill cards. It was when they reached the last card that the Sword Emperor made a disgusted face. Then he immediately changed the subject. He urged Jinhwan to pick that golden card, but Jinhwan ignored him. Instead, he decisively chose the last silver card. Skill description, A-level skill, Fire Immunity. Immunes all damage and effects caused by fire. But when taking ice or water attribute damage, damage is increased by 300%. The dazzling and acrobatic movements of the illusion mechanism. So this is the true secret of the Hellfire Lantern. With this skill, clearing the game will be a breeze. However, just as Jinghuan awaited her rebirth and return, a sudden prompt sounded in her ears. The ability used this time will have side effects. It will reappear shortly. The childhood trauma image of the Hellfire Lantern has been generated. Punishment officially begins. The little boy has not eaten for half a month. He desperately begged the man in front of him for a piece of bread. But the old man turned away and rejected him at the door. He cursed under his breath, "What bad luck. In this time of famine, don't even talk about these little beggars. Even the villagers themselves can't get enough to eat." But just then, a man dressed in luxurious clothes walked up to the boy. He gently patted the boy's head. Then she said to him, "Come with me. I have something delicious at my place." After some sweet talk, the boy followed her to a mansion. What the boy didn't know was that what awaited him was not a happy haven, but a hellish life he would never forget. After arriving home, the man revealed his true nature. He ruthlessly locked the boy in a cage, making him suffer the pain of hunger every day. But that's not all. This pervert kept torturing him. Not a single part of his body was left intact. On a certain day after that, the man and a group of sick villagers organized a cult ritual. He claimed that these innocent orphans were the children of witches, and falsely accused them of being the culprits behind the spread of disease. Then, the executioner killed his little companion right in front of the boy. Watching this tragic scene unfold before him, Jin Huan remained silent for a long time. The Sword Emperor also couldn't bear to watch. Damn, these lunatics are actually blaming everything on the children. Just as the words left his mouth, a butler holding a candlestick walked straight over. But halfway there, he suddenly twisted his ankle and fell to the ground. The fire then spread throughout the entire mansion. Everyone was desperately running for their lives. No one cared about the children in the basement. Amidst the sounds of painful screams, none of the children survived. They were all burned alive. After watching the story of the extinguished hellfire lamp, Jin Huan collapsed onto his bed, unable to shake off the feeling for a long time. Although Sword Emperor agreed that the story was very sad, he reminded Jin Huan that to clear the level, he had to steal himself and find the real doll and kill it. However, Jin Huan had his own way of doing things. He would never be like Flame Emperor, resorting to unscrupulous killing to reach the peak. And he firmly believed that there must be other ways to clear the level. Then he opened the door wide. He walked straight into the flames of hell. As Jin Huan walked in, the dolls cutely said, "Come play with us." Uncle Jin Huan gently replied, "Okay, I'll play with you for a little while." Then Jin Huan covered his eyes. I started playing hide and seek with the children. But these dolls didn't choose to hide. Instead, they sat obediently and played with me, because they were once innocent and lovely children too. As the dolls continued to melt, I arrived in the basement, and found the real hellfire kerosene lamp. I quickly opened the cell door, gently stroking his head, and said, "I found you, the little one." Then, like all the dolls, the coal lamp melted in front of Jin Huan. But before leaving, he sincerely said to Jin Huan, "Thank you, big brother." After the coal lamp disappeared, the two of them stood there in silence, frozen. Then came the notification, "Congratulations, you have successfully cleared the hidden dungeon." He is the weakest S-rank hunter. Yet, he cleared the 10th level, a stage that no other hunter dared to enter. However, Jin Huan didn't feel particularly happy after clearing it. Perhaps it was because he hadn't made the headlines. He felt that this world was really too awful. The two of them were awkwardly at a loss for words. What happened was, suddenly fireworks lit up the sky. Immediately, people around the world received the notification that the 10th floor had been successfully conquered. As fireworks lit up everywhere, people began to discuss. Some guessed it was the Black Dragon Guild, while others thought it was that old sword saint. For a moment, this topic sparked a global debate. People were all very curious about who had passed this level. Looking at the information about themselves on the phone, Jin Huan felt an unprecedented sense of satisfaction. So this is what it feels like to be the center of attention. Sword Emperor was genuinely happy for him, but he said that the road ahead is still long. If he wants to reach the peak, he still needs to put in more effort. As soon as he finished speaking, the guard at the door quickly rushed over. Breathing heavily, he asked, "Did you clear the 10th level? If so, could you please leave your name?" Jin Huan replied, "Forget the name. Maybe we'll meet again in the future." The guard was stunned. He thought to himself, "Don't act cool at my expense. I just wanted to simply report to my superior." At this moment, Sword Emperor was also beside him, wildly praising Jin Huan. "You're really smart, kid." Maintaining an air of mystery is also a great way to build fame. But Jin Huan told Sword Emperor to stop being so clever. "You think by changing the subject and flattering me, I'll forget about our bet? From now on, you'll call me Master Jin." The Sword Emperor's face was filled with terror. Whoa, this kid actually remembered. He quickly pleaded with Jin Huan, "We're partners, aren't we? How can I address you so formally, right?" However, Jin Huan didn't fall for it. "From now on, you must call me Lord Jin." The two of them then went to the cafe in Baker. At this point, the arrogant emperor was about to lose his mind. He had lived for hundreds of years, after all, but now he was about to be humiliated by this young brat. A little while later, a cute little kitten appeared in front of them. Jin Huan immediately saw through its true identity, but he didn't expose it. But I pretended not to know. With the kitten's appearance, members of all the top guilds showed up. They came to invite Jin Huan to join their respective guilds. Jin Huan was prepared. He handed them his business card, and told them that until the completion list is published, and the countdown ends, they couldn't reveal his identity, and please don't disturb the other guests in public. The union representatives immediately booked the place, and politely asked the passers-by to cooperate. Now the negotiations can officially begin. While Jin Huan was hesitating about his choice, the cat in his arms started to talk. It said the Merchants Alliance was willing to offer him 500,000 gold coins and the position of vice captain. Jin Huan finished speaking. The cat jumped off the chair, and transformed into a human in front of everyone. This elegant dark-skinned woman was the Baroness, ranked third on the hunter leaderboard. Baroness, the leader, looked at the composed Jin Huan, and praised her courage. Jin Huan replied that a cat transforming into a human was nothing special. I can even see ghosts, she added. At this moment, everyone knew they couldn't compete with the Baroness's wealth. They immediately got up and left. However, just at that moment, a venomous-faced dragon kicked open the door. He was cursing that damned cat. But it wasn't just the venomous snake from Tianwu's sect who had come. There was also the chief judge of the Pantheon, a paladin from the self-defense force, and the dark sorceress from the Black Dragon Guild. Jin Huan stared, somewhat at a loss. She didn't expect that some of the top-ranking figures would all show up. Then everyone sat down together to order coffee. Seeing this, the cafe owner's legs went weak. And now it was time for the real recruitment battle. The Black Witch got straight to the point and asked Mr. Jin, which team are you planning to join? If you haven't decided yet, then we'll have a fierce battle for your talent. But we've spent too much time on the 9th floor lately. If you hadn't conquered the 10th floor and proven the tower's worth, people would have probably forgotten about it soon. And now there's a food crisis. The resources we're extracting below the 9th floor aren't enough to sustain us. And if we want to get past the 10th floor, we'll need new blood from outside the tower to keep challenging it. But to achieve that goal, we must create a role model. Someone to declare that the era of this world's colossal tower has fully arrived. Jin Huan understood. You want me to be the symbol of this new era, right? Okay, no problem. But before that, let's play a game. Jin Huan then pulled a deck of cards from his pocket, and I told everyone that we would pick the winner by playing poker. As long as one of you wins, I'll join the winning side's team, and won't require a deposit or position from you. But if I win, then I will join all of your teams at once, and my treatment will be equal to yours. The Duchess found this proposal quite interesting, agreed to play a round with Jin Huan. The others didn't object, and each picked up their cards. Then he whispered to Sword Emperor, you don't want to call me Lord Jin anymore, do you? Just tell me their cards, and after the game, you won't have to call me that anymore. Sword Emperor instantly became excited, practically dancing with joy. Leave it to me. A weak foreign hunter actually cheated right in front of the top players on the leaderboard, and the way he cheated was unprecedented. He had his ghost master help him peek at the cards. Then, during the game, no matter what hand his opponent had, Jin Huan knew it all. He made a fortune. The top players started questioning their lives. Finally, after more than 30 rounds, the venomous snake, leader of the Tianwu sect, couldn't stand it anymore. Damn it, this kid must be cheating. More than 30 rounds and he hasn't lost once. It's too outrageous. Jin Huan calmly replied, it seems you have no proof that I'm cheating. Venomous snake was helpless. He had no choice but to walk honestly towards the losers area. After a fierce battle, the self-defense force's Night Brother also lost the fight. He told Viper that the guy must have some special ability. Maybe we were doomed to lose from the start. The judge next to him also told Viper to stop getting angry. Come, have some 200-degree coffee to calm down. Now, only the Black Witch and the card dealer remain on the field. During their conversation, the witch said that Jin Huan seemed like an easy person to communicate with. Then, they began to introduce their background. It turns out that the young witch had an unfortunate past. They were born in a war-torn country. Every day was a struggle for survival. It wasn't until the appearance of the tower that they got a chance to turn their life around. Then, they said seriously, we want to create a society within the tower where no one cares about your background. Only abilities matter. Here, everyone is equal, regardless of their status. Everyone is equal. This is the common goal of all our guilds, and your countdown is about to end. At that time, you will become the center of attention. A completely different life will begin for you. I hope you will handle it rationally. After the witch finished speaking, Jin Huan placed all his bets. And I sincerely say to everyone present, I don't care about the society you mentioned, nor do I care about the food crisis you brought up earlier. It doesn't matter how you want to use me. I just hope you'll support me in conquering the tower, because I want to experience what it's like to reach the peak. The witch felt a bit of a headache after hearing this. You really have big ambitions, don't you? You're just like that Sword Saint guy. After the conversation ended, the card game also came to a close. The result was just as expected. Jing Huang won the victory. The guild leaders also accepted the outcome. He kept his promise to join all the guilds present. At this moment, Sword Emperor was happily showing off to Jin Huan that he no longer had to call him Lord Jin. With that, the guild matter came to an end. Now is the time to prepare for the attack on the 11th floor. This is a historic moment in human history. Everyone is excitedly shouting. The countdown ends at the very last moment. Suddenly, a loud bang is heard from the sky. A blonde goddess gracefully appears before the crowd. She leaves the bystanders stunned. She's so beautiful, is she an angel? Then, the goddess gently said to the warriors climbing the giant tower, "Congratulations. You have passed through purgatory. The flames of resentment from the mansion will come to an end from this moment." Beginner's tutorial. The boundary of the 11th floor will now open. Just say the word teleport to enter the tower. But as soon as the words were spoken, a man suddenly appeared in the sky, running at full speed. He launched a magnificent slash toward the goddess. It cleaved her in two. That's right, this man is the Sword Saint, Marcus. However, this strike did not harm the goddess in the slightest. With a sizzling sound, the goddess actually restored her original form, and she continued repeating the same words from before. Seeing this, the people below instantly understood. After all this time, it was just a hologram. At this moment, the Sword Saint suddenly sensed something. He shot a sharp glance down, and locked eyes with Jin Huan in the crowd. Jin Huan instantly felt a chill down his spine. It seems I've been targeted. Then the old man said, "A single word, teleport, and vanish before my eyes." The judge followed him closely into the tower. With the repeated sounds of teleportation, people were successively transported inside, but the goddess hadn't finished speaking. She kindly reminded humanity that between the 11th and 20th floors, your faith will be tested like never before. I hope you will find the ultimate answer and return victorious. Jin Huan was utterly absorbed. He felt that the woman before him was more than just a hologram. Just as he was about to teleport into the tower, a group of reporters suddenly appeared behind him. It seems the news of him clearing the 10th floor had already spread. Although Jin Huan enjoyed being the center of attention, but with so many microphones in his face, he still felt somewhat at a loss. In the end, he simply decided to ignore them. He would enter the tower first and figure it out later. But when everyone entered the 11th floor, they were all stunned by the scene before them. Even Sword Saint, this old man, couldn't help but sigh. The battlefield was truly magnificent and vast. Just when everyone was standing there, confused and not knowing what to do, a man in armor walked up to them. He loudly called out to the warriors from another world, "Come, help us protect the Empire." As soon as he finished speaking, a quest description appeared above the knight's head. The quest objective was to help the Akan Empire resist the invasion of the Demon King, because only by successfully defending the supply port could they enter the next level. After the Guardian Empire mission on the 11th floor officially started, Jin Huan's hidden dungeon rewards for clearing the 10th floor were also distributed. The first reward is the ordinary one, the Blessing of the War God. This allows you to see the complete map from the 11th to the 20th floor. The second, and most important, hidden dungeon reward is the Blessing of the Original God. This allows you to see the abilities and locations of all NPCs from the 11th to the 20th floor. However, the rewards haven't stopped. Jin Huan also received the Blessing of the Merchant God. You can choose any equipment between the 11th and 20th floors. Jin Huan is happily basking in the blessings of the gods. With these items, clearing the game would be a piece of cake. But the person next to him, Jian Difei, is about to explode. He hasn't seen him train even once. Every day, he just watches him cheat. Jin Huan says, "Big brother, stop complaining. Now I'll show you what a man who's equal parts skill and luck looks like." Immediately, Jin Huan opened the NPC leaderboard. Then he found the NPC closest to him who also had skills. Next, he grinned widely. A perfect idea formed in his mind. Seeing the Emperor, he immediately understood his intentions. Then, he mocked him with sharp words. "He's at it again." Then Jin Huan walked up to General Akin. He got straight to the point. "If you want to save your empire, then kill me quickly." Akin was stunned. "What are you talking about?" But Jin Huan's face was serious. He tried to convince the general that he had a special trick. "As long as I die, I will receive God's protection. Then the Demon King will be defeated without a fight." Akin still couldn't quite believe it, even if they could win. Jin Huan was still a hero from another world who came to help. How could he bring himself to do it? But Jin Huan's attitude was resolute. He only wants to die at the general's hands. But if Jin refuses to take action, he will take matters into his own hands. After a brief internal struggle, the general made up his mind. He swung his sword fiercely, and with great pain, killed Jin Huan, muttering, "Thank you." The true warrior. With the arrival of death, Jin Huan successfully replicated one of Jin's skills. But after he was resurrected, and returned to this moment in time, he was already seated on General Jin's horse, and the artifact he held was the key item to completing this challenge. The moment Jin Huan raised the shining goddess holy sword, the imperial army's morale soared. They pushed the demon king's army back steadily. It turned out that after Jin Huan's death, he not only copied AI Jin's battlefield control skill, but also obtained this legendary holy sword of great origin. The goddess who created this holy sword had prophesied that the moment the destined one wielded it, would be the day the empire would be reborn. Jin Huan reveled in the feeling of commanding this vast army, but Sword Emperor, standing beside him, wasn't happy at all. He thought, show off, will you? Don't shove your damn sword in my face. The ordinary hunters were also green with envy. Jin Huan smugly watched their expressions. He enjoyed seeing others jealous of him. Under the command of Jin Huan's holy sword, the demon lords were completely annihilated. Only a lone goblin king remained. Jin Huan seized the opportunity and charged towards the boss. He then launched himself into the air with a jump. He fired an arrow, instantly killing the goblin king. With the final boss dead, the empire achieved victory in this battle. The giant tower then announced the completion of the 11th floor. The top 10 challengers on the contribution leaderboard are as follows. When everyone saw that the first place was Jin Huan, they were shocked and stunned. They started discussing, isn't he the big shot who cleared the 10th level alone? Although others see him as a big shot, the Sword Emperor doesn't think so, because in his eyes, it's just some cleverness and luck. It's not really about one's own inherent strength. Jin Huan also understood the Sword Emperor's good intentions. He then told him that before passing the 20th floor, he would practice swordsmanship. Don't be angry. The Sword Emperor said, good boy, that's more like it. Don't worry, I'll teach you well. Looking at the overjoyed Sword Emperor Jin Huan, I thought he was just too easy to please. He's practically like a little kid. Then General Aiken came to Jin Huan, and thanked him. But Aiken said the war wasn't over, because the godlike demon behind it all hadn't yet revealed itself. As they were about to shake hands and say goodbye, the tower announced again that the top 10 challengers have been counted. The top 10 can enter the 12th floor early. Rewards will be distributed shortly. Before teleporting, Aijin whispered to Jin Huan, our empire will be entrusted to you. Then, the group was teleported into the imperial palace. At this moment, the judge, Little Cutie, looked at Jin Huan with admiration. She praised him, saying he was amazing. She couldn't believe that even NPCs would follow his orders. Just as the two were flattering each other, the Sword Saint suddenly attacked with his sword. Fortunately, Cutie blocked it just in time. Then, the Sword Saint snarled, I advise you not to interfere. I must kill this guy. This man single-handedly saved the Imperial army, yet he was nearly cut down by the self-righteous Sword Saint. Inquisitor Cutie was bewildered. He thought the old man had become an assassin. The Sword Saint glared at Jin Huan fiercely. He threatened that he would kill this beast today. He also said that anyone who tried to stop him would have their arms chopped off. But the little cutie wasn't afraid of him at all. She pointed out that Jin Huan was an important member of their battle group. If you kill him just like that, what would be left of the 5 great battle groups' reputation? The Sword Saint stared at her sharply and said, I don't care about any of that. The judge understands. It seems you really have to kill him. Immediately, the little cutie casts a holy spell to send him to the gods. The next second, the paladin and the venomous snake descend from the sky. But the Sword Saint turns around and catches their attacks with one hand in an instant. Such immense power makes the venomous snake remark, you're such a mess. An old man like you, why are you still so reckless? After he finished speaking, the 3 of them surrounded him. Then, Sweetie turned to the Duchess and asked for 10,000 gold coins. The Duchess wanted to refuse, but the situation had already come to this. She had to bite the bullet and support him. Then, it began to rain gold coins from the sky. Sweetie looked at the gold coins with a satisfied expression. Then he put his hands together. Immense magical power gathered in his palm. In the next moment, the Viper and the Paladin's bodies were supercharged. Their physical functions were drastically enhanced. And this is divine magic, calling upon the gods. The Dark Witch beside them stopped sighing, and prepared to help them. Then she told the Sword Saint, the reason we're stopping you, is because we have a contract with Jin Huan. He has already joined our 5 major factions at the same time, and his position is equivalent to that of a faction leader. So are you sure you can handle all of us? The situation has completely reversed now. At this moment, even if Sword Saint's strength is overwhelming, he absolutely cannot withstand the siege of these top hunters. Sword Saint was so enraged that he gritted his teeth. The villain was standing right in front of him, but he was unable to uphold justice. However, at that moment, Jin Huan arrogantly walked up to the Sword Saint. He claimed that he was actually afraid inside. He wanted to have a serious talk with him, but the Sword Saint didn't believe a word of his nonsense. In his eyes, Jin Huan was nothing but a maniac who had killed over 4,000 lives. A murderer who took over 4,000 lives is standing right before me. But this is the Sword Saint, a man who always hates evil. Yet, he can only watch him walk free. The Sword Saint glared at them. In his eyes, these people and Jin Huan are all the same, and he was sure that not joining their fight was a wise decision. But the real reason the Sword Saint refused to join was because He wants to prove that he can reach the top of the tower on his own. He scolded everyone, saying, "My goal is to make all hunters understand that with one's own ability and effort, success can be achieved." I gave them hope for a comeback. "But what about you? You are nothing but a bunch of rotting, foul mud." Upon hearing this, the Black Witch gritted her teeth in fury. The venomous snake was also angrily cursing, telling him not to act so noble. When they were challenging level 5 to 9 earlier, if you were willing to help, the casualties would have been at least halved. However, Sword Saint didn't care about what they were saying. He even said that if they disagreed, they could actually have a real fight. Jin Huan told everyone to stop arguing. Pointing fingers at each other won't solve anything. Shouldn't we be focusing on conquering the 12th floor of the tower now, and helping the NPCs save the Empire? After saying this, the Paladin, who had been silent all along, spoke up. He agreed with what Jin Huan said. Then, he revealed his unique skill and activated it. After using it, he could discern whether someone's words were true or false. He then told the Sword Saint and Jin Huan, "If you trust me, let's have a test of authenticity then." Upon hearing this, Jin Huan saw this as the perfect opportunity to prove himself. He immediately agreed to the proposal. The Sword Saint also believed in the Paladin's character, so he agreed to this method. Then the test began. The Sword Saint immediately challenged Jin Huan, asking if he had killed over 4,000 people. I didn't expect Jin Huan to be so straightforward. He directly admitted to his crime. The Sword Saint excitedly shouted to the crowd, "Look at him." Sure enough, just as he was speaking, the Paladin interrupted him. Because Jin Huan had just lied, the Sword Saint was instantly stunned. His face was full of disbelief. He quickly switched to another question, saying that this guy was definitely trained to be a top killer. However, this time, Jin Huan didn't explain. He just admitted it. But the Paladin said that what Jin Huan said was still a lie. The old man was completely confused. He didn't understand what was going on. He even started doubting whether his skills were malfunctioning. At that moment, Jin voluntarily revealed the truth. "I have indeed killed someone, but only one. And that person was a complete scumbag." The Sword Saint was left speechless, because everything Jin Huan just said was true. Then, Jin Huan leaned closer to the old man and said, "Since the misunderstanding has been cleared up, shouldn't you apologize to me? If these guild leaders weren't here, I'd probably be dead by your hand right now, right?" The weakest S-rank hunter actually demanded an apology from the number 1 ranked hunter, the Sword Saint, right in front of the 5 top guild leaders. Now the facts have proven that Jin Huan isn't a murderer. The guild leaders are also urging the Sword Saint to apologize to Jin Huan, and Jin Huan was very curious to see what he would do next. Looking at the sword of justice he had wielded countless times, the old man fell into deep thought. He drew the sword from its scabbard. He looked at the killing technique hovering above his head. Finally, he sheathed his sword. He bowed solemnly to Jin Huan, and said, "I'm sorry." He admitted his recklessness and misunderstanding of Jin Huan, and that he almost killed him. Before meeting Jin Huan, the old man had always lived by the principle of never sparing any evildoer. But now, he realized his thinking was stubborn and wrong. He then sincerely told Jin Huan that after he reached the top of the tower, Jin Huan could take his life any time. Jin Huan turned to look at the holy knight beside him. The Paladin nodded. It implied that what the Sword Saint just said was true. Jin Huan looked at the Sword Saint in disbelief. Then he respectfully said to the Sword Saint, "You don't have to have such extreme thoughts. Actually, I would be very satisfied if you just taught me a bit of swordsmanship. I originally didn't want to make any demands or forgive you, but I'm worried you might feel too embarrassed. I had no choice but to come up with this solution." After saying that, the old man's face turned red. He didn't expect that while talking, he would reveal all his true feelings. His words left everyone present stunned. Even the Paladin was greatly surprised. My God, everything he said was true. At this moment, the little one beside him was so moved, tears streaming down. This was the most sacred moment he had ever witnessed. The Sword Saint lowered his head and remained silent for a while. In the next moment, he suddenly hugged Jin Huan tightly. Excitedly, he said, "No problem. From now on, your training will be on me. Just call me Grandpa Marcus. When my sweet and lovely granddaughter comes over to visit, I'll definitely introduce her to you." Jin Huan was somewhat flattered. This all came too suddenly. I wasn't even ready for it. While the two of them were chatting aimlessly, a prompt suddenly came from the tower. "Congratulations, you've cleared level 11. You are now the number 1 ranked hunter. The first place reward is now being distributed." As soon as the announcement finished, a golden goddess and a black demon appeared in front of Jin Huan. Choosing to protect the goddess will grant me any important position within the empire. I'll also receive corresponding abilities and prestige. However, the Demon King's reward is worlds apart. The Demon King was greatly impressed by Jin Huan's performance. He wants to collaborate with Jin Huan secretly. All he has to do is kill all the heroes present. Once completed, he'll use his power to transport him to the 99th floor of the tower. Jin Huan looked at the other party leaders in terror. As long as I kill these people, I can make everyone extremely nervous, and rush the Paladin to use the lie detection. skill to interrogate everyone present. Then the paladin begins the lie detection. But since Jin Huan gave up the reward, he has no suspicion this time. Then the paladin began to question everyone one by one. But they all spoke the truth without exception. Not a single person lied. The thought made the serpent's spine chill. None of the 10 people present chose the Demon King's reward. So where did the traitor come from? Seeing everyone's flustered state, the rain god sighed at the foolishness of the warriors. The Demon King was watching from above, laughing heartily. The paladin told everyone not to panic. Stay calm. However, the sword saint suddenly interrupted him. He suspected that the paladin might be the traitor, because even the lie detector can lie. Hearing this, the dark sorceress was very displeased. Are you suspecting us? The sword saint agreed. Even if the paladin isn't a traitor, he might have lied for one of you. As everyone grew suspicious of each other, Little Cutie said to the group, we 5 warbands have known each other for 10 years. There's definitely no problem with trust between us. But those outside the 5 warbands, that's hard to say. The bystanders understood the Inquisitor's meaning, but before they could escape, Cutie teleported behind them, and pierced one man's body with a single palm strike. Viper quickly finished off the other one. Swordsman couldn't stand it anymore. He drew his sword and cursed, you animals. They'd finally revealed their true colors. Cutie was ruthless. Better to wrongfully kill than let any of them go. After brutally killing a few people, the tower then announced that the 3 warriors had died. They are not the Demon King's subordinates. The Sword Saint can't take it anymore. With one strike, he directly severed the little one's arm. Luckily, the snake blocked it. Otherwise, I'd be dead already. Seeing this, the other regiment leaders rushed over to help, and started fighting the Sword Saint. The scene was incredibly chaotic. The paladin quickly handed over authority to Jin Huan, asking him to step in and stop them from causing any more trouble. Then Jin Huan called out to the Sword Saint, for my sake, as your son-in-law, could you please stop? I know you won't forgive these people, but it won't be too late to act after we find out the truth. After everyone calmed down, Jin Huan carefully analyzed the situation for them. Look, it says here, destroy the 20th floor of the Demon King's river. Our focus should be on dealing with the Demon King, not this baseless traitor. Maybe this so-called traitor was just forced into our midst by the system to create internal strife. As long as we keep attacking the towers, and defeat the final Demon King, won't everything be resolved? The Autumn Rain Demon King has finally revealed its true form. The moment the Demon King stood on the battlefield, a blood-red nightmare rain began to fall from the sky. All the soldiers who were caught in it fell into terrifying nightmares. Even the mighty Sword Saint, such a powerful hunter, could not withstand the oppressive hunting power before the Autumn Rain Demon King. Looking at the humans, who were like ants, the Autumn Rain Demon King spoke. Do you really think that summoning help from another world will save your empire? How pitiful you humans are. No matter how many people you bring, I will break your will, and let evil spirits devour you. After saying this, the giant tower displayed the mission description. The difficulty level reached an unprecedented SSS rank. The objective was to stop the Demon King from weakening his power. But no matter how you looked at it, this was beyond the hunter's capabilities. The Autumn Rain Demon King was simply not someone they could handle. However, Jin Huan didn't think so. He knew the tower wouldn't issue an impossible task. So he began directing everyone, assigning each person a different objective. But when it was Little Cutie's turn, Jin Huan didn't give him a pleasant look. He despised Little Cutie for indiscriminately killing innocent hunters. But now wasn't the time to settle their feud, because he, as an important general, still has tasks to complete. That is, to reassure the soldiers on the city walls, and stabilize the current situation. Now, everyone is fully prepared, and the battle officially begins at this moment. Soon, Jin Huan prepares to head to the battlefield. But just then, the Dark Witch found him. Jin Huan was somewhat confused. Shouldn't you be on the city wall right now? Why did you suddenly come back? The witch replied, of course, I came to bring you. Because your holy sword can attract NPCs. Inspiring. So the one needed on the city wall isn't me, it's you. You should agree quickly. I'll take you there smoothly right away. Jin Huan was very surprised. You have to know, Lasky's skills are something everyone keeps hidden. I didn't expect the witch to directly admit she couldn't do it. She actually told him this outright. But the witch hadn't thought that much. Because her current identity is the Imperial Chancellor. Saving the people is the most important goal. Then the witch tightly held Jin Huan's hand. With a swoosh, the two of them shifted to the city wall. But upon arriving here, they realized the situation wasn't optimistic. Standing here, one could see a group of soldiers below, crying in despair. The Dark Witch stared sharply at the soldiers. Then he stood on the city wall and shouted, everyone, get a grip. Soldiers of the Empire, you are the true walls of this nation. As long as you don't fall, this nation will not perish, and the gods will bless us. After speaking these passionate words, the goddess of protection was deeply impressed by the witch. For this, the goddess bestowed upon her the light of another omni-holy sword. The moment she and Jin Huan raised their holy swords, The goddess-given light of the omni-holy swords enveloped the entire empire, protecting the people from the nightmare whispers. However, in Jin Huan's eyes, this omnipotence wasn't anything remarkable, because the light of the holy swords could only illuminate a single. With the witch's encouragement and the goddess's blessing, the soldiers, trapped in a nightmare of fear, gradually regained their fighting spirit. Jing Huan looked at the dark witch in astonishment. He hadn't expected such a cold woman to have this unknown side. Seeing Jing Huan's dazed expression, the dark witch quipped, "Am I that beautiful?" Staring at the whole time. Figure out how we're going to deal with the Demon King next. But Jing Huan already had a plan in mind. He plans to have the hunters attract the small monsters. Then, using the witch's teleportation ability, he will teleport himself in front of the isolated Demon King. Upon hearing this, the witch was somewhat puzzled. What's the difference between this and suicide? However, he wasn't wrong. Jin Huan is indeed going to his death. At this moment, the Demon King spoke. He scoffed, saying the goddess's gift to humanity wasn't a blessing at all. It was merely a cruel joke. Then, the Demon King raised his mysterious, black-wreathed greatsword. With a single swing, hundreds of thousands of Imperial soldiers were instantly annihilated. Even the seemingly impregnable Imperial palace couldn't withstand this apocalyptic power. It was reduced to rubble with one strike. The Valkyrie captain, responsible for the inner palace, didn't survive. She died at the hands of the Demon King. The witch lamented the death of her former friend. But now was not the time for mourning. They had to deal with the situation at hand first. Then the two clasped hands, and teleported to the battlefield. They watched as hordes of monsters surged towards them. The Sword Emperor told Jin Huan that this is a great opportunity to train yourself. Give it your all and resist the monsters, no matter how long you can hold on. Then, Jin Huan took the enhanced adrenaline shot, and immediately injected it all at once. Now everything is ready. It's time to truly defeat the Demon King's army. Facing the enemy's massive Demon King's army, Jin Huan didn't flinch. He chugged down the bottle of 82 adrenaline. Then he grabbed the holy sword, and began slaughtering the demon army. He didn't know how much time had passed. Jin Huan had lost count of how many monsters he'd killed. He began to enter a trance-like state. The world in his eyes grew dim. Only by standing out brightly on this battlefield can one truly shine. At this moment, he thought of the beast, Yen Di. He wondered, why should he be the one to conquer the 20th floor? Since he can do it, I can too. And I will conquer the top 100 floors of the tower. Through continuous monster kills, his sense of presence once again surged. He was promoted to a D-rank hunter, and he is now one step closer to becoming an S-rank hunter. Soon, Sword Saint, the old master, arrived at the scene. He praised Jin for being impressive. As a D-rank hunter, he already possessed strength and courage comparable to an S-rank hunter. He truly is a promising talent. Jin responded humbly, "Isn't that obvious? Because I have a divination." Then the two of them teamed up and began slaughtering the battlefield. The little cutie also followed closely behind, leading the Imperial army to attack the battlefield. Meanwhile, the Poison Snake sect leader also arrived. But when he reached Jin Huan's side, he found that Jin Huan was too absorbed in the fight. He didn't even hear himself speak. Liao Fan smiled with relief. This kid is truly exceptional. Then, he stayed by Jin Huan's side. They watched as the humans struggled desperately. The Demon King had lost patience with playing with them. He raised his massive black sword, and summoned a blood-red mist in the sky. Seeing this, the Dark Witch immediately used her mirror to reflect the attack. Then everyone gathered together, and held the witch's hand, preparing to teleport. But when the witch called Jin Huan's name, he hesitated. He stood before the Demon King, feeling a surge of emotion. Because the scene before me and everything I've experienced will soon disappear. The Sword Emperor comforted me, telling me not to be so sad. "Let's go," he said. "Let's deal with the ultimate monster." Then all the heroes gathered, and arrived before the Demon King. But before either side could attack, Golden Illusion suddenly let go of the witch's hand, and raised the holy sword, about to strike down the Demon Lord. The Demon Lord mocked Jin Huan, calling him foolish and arrogant. "To think you dare challenge me alone." However, the foolish one wasn't Jin Huan. It was the Demon Lord himself, because Jin Huan intended to die by his hand all along. This was his 4,500th death. He can not only infinitely resurrect but also neutralize poisons. You can still copy the skills of the killer. In order to break through the 12th level of the tower, he deliberately died at the hands of the Autumn Rain Demon King. Now it's time to choose the skill cards. The Sword Emperor then began to describe the details of the skill cards. First is the first S-rank skill, Hatred Spreads Like Rain. Skill effect. As long as there is the blood of an innocent person flowing nearby, the sky will start pouring the rain of nightmares. Those who are drenched will fall into a nightmare, and be slowly drained to death. Chapter 2, Emergency Skill, The Echo of the Heart, Your emotions will enhance your inner strength. Whether it's hatred, revenge, or joy, anger, sorrow, or happiness, it will be transformed into an endless source of fuel, boosting your inner strength. Here comes my third, most awesome skill. The SS rank skill, 100 Ghosts. It summons the people or monsters I've killed, and turns them into an undead army, but they can only become things like goblins, orcs, skeletons, and so on, and I can only use it once a week. Jin Huan pondered. These 3 skills were all very much to his liking, but due to the limitations, he could only choose one. Finally, Jin Huan grabbed a golden card. Because Jin Huan's hunter level has increased, there will be side effects this time. The Autumn Rain Demon King's psychological trauma is about to resurface. The intensity of the punishment will be revealed after the ultimate choice ends. Time has also returned to 24 hours. Jin Huan decided to reveal all the information about the 11th and 12th floors, but there was one condition. That is, after entering the tower, the team leaders must unconditionally agree to one thing. Jin Huan cannot specify what it is right now, but what can be guaranteed is that it won't involve anything like harming others' lives. The little cutie said it's fine. It's always good to be prepared in advance. The Lady Commander also agreed, supporting this condition. Then, Jin Huan shared the details of the 10th floor and above with them. After discussing the toy tower, Jin Huan asked the paladin to walk with him. The two then leisurely walked down the street. After a short while, GD reminded Jin Huan that the guy had caught up. Jin Huan was not surprised, because everything was going according to his plan. Then, as they walked on, the two of them arrived at Ihan's pharmacy. When Ihan saw the Self-Defense Forces paladin visit his small shop, he was so scared that he immediately knelt and begged for mercy. He kept muttering that he was a small business owner, and that he was an upstanding citizen with no criminal record. Jin Huan urged him to get up quickly. He explained that he was here with a paladin to buy potions. You misunderstood. Hearing this, Ihan grabbed Jin Huan's hand and said, "You are truly my angel." At that moment, a man walked to the pharmacy door. The person who arrived was the Sword Saint, Marcus. He stepped forward and bluntly said, "Please, everyone leave. I want to have a private talk with this kid." When someone misunderstands you from the bottom of their heart, your explanation feels so powerless. The moment the Sword Saint entered the pharmacy, he threatened everyone except Jin Huan. He told everyone to leave immediately. But how could the paladin stand by and watch? He firmly stood in front of the Sword Saint, not an inch given. It seems a fight is inevitable. However, the Sword Saint doesn't want to attack the paladin. He knows this man is a good man who has never taken a life. At this moment, Ihan also steps forward. He explains to the Sword Saint that Jin Huan is his benefactor. He vows to protect him at all costs. Seeing this, the swordsman fell silent. Although the two weren't powerful enough to stop him, their resolute gaze and righteous actions resonated with unexpected force. After a moment of contemplation, the old man sheathed his sword, and turned, saying nonchalantly, "It seems I've come at the wrong time." After he left the pharmacy, Jin Hua immediately followed. He shouted for the Sword Saint to meet him tomorrow afternoon at the open space north of the city. He would explain everything to him at the Cross Guild. Looking at the Sword Saint's desolate back, the paladin couldn't help but sigh. The old man wasn't always like this. He once had a harmonious and happy family, but an accident occurred while he was out one day. His daughter and son-in-law were both murdered by a psychopath. Only the grandson and granddaughter survived by chance. It was probably because of these experiences that he became the Sword Saint, filled with hatred for evil. In fact, the paladin truly understands the old man's feelings, because some villains just don't deserve to live in this world. The next afternoon, Jin Huan arrived as scheduled, at the meeting spot in the northern part of the city. Saint praised him for his courage. "He dares to face me alone. It seems that after killing so many people, you're confident in your own strength." Jin Huan felt some pain. He looked as aggrieved as a child. Then, he got straight to the point and said, "I know why you want to kill me. It's because of the detective's sharp eye skill, right, old man?" Gramps looked surprised. How did this guy know? Jin Huan told him, "I'm a prophet. That I can see the future. No matter what you do next, I know it all." The swordsman frowned, then put his hand behind his back. He told Jin Huan to guess how many fingers he was holding up. Jin Huan miscalculated. He knew he couldn't guess. Suddenly, he whipped out a dagger. Just as the swordsman thought he was going to attack, Jin Huan stabbed himself without hesitation. As the old man looked on in shock, time rewound to 24 hours earlier. After Jin Huan died again and again, he finally convinced the Sword Saint this time. He asked the old man to give him 5 days to prove his innocence at the Cross Guild. The old man agreed. After all, with him by his side, the kid couldn't run away. Now that everything has been resolved, the 12th level will have a brand new ending. He managed to convince the world's #1 hunter of his innocence. Jin Huan had to die nearly 600 times. But in the end, he finally succeeded in convincing the Sword Saint. Now, everyone has gathered. The attack on the 11th floor has begun. The guild leaders then started slaughtering the enemy forces. But this time, it was different. Jin Huan didn't choose to steal the spotlight. He was quietly watching everything happen from the back. Perhaps he had experienced too much before. Now, he just wants to keep a low profile. But as he smiled, he suddenly felt a chill down his spine. Then he quickly turned his head. He realized the Sword Saint was staring at him intensely, and the old man even stated that he would supervise Jin Huan 24/7. Jin Huan had no choice but to accept. He was his nemesis, after all. To end the battle quickly, Jin Huan sought out the Black Dragon commander. He then took out a miniature map, and told him it would allow him to grasp the battlefield situation at a glance. Hearing about this treasure, the Black Witch's eyes lit up. He grasped Jin Huan's hand and said, "Why didn't you tell me this sooner? Hurry up and find the final boss." Then the two of them tightly held each other's hands. In the next moment, they instantly teleported into the air. They immediately spotted the location of the final boss. The Dark Sorceress continued using teleportation. She appeared above the boss. "Let me do it. I'll go kill him." After speaking, Jin Huan raised the holy sword and leaped into the air. With one strike, he cleaved the Goblin King into pieces, like a green apple for Fanta. Seeing their leader turned into minced meat, the little ones fled in panic. And with that, the battle came to a perfect end. The Dark Sorceress shouted in excitement, "This is amazing. We cleared the dungeon in under an hour, and the number of hunters who died is very few. Jin Huan, you're really amazing." Jin Huan was completely stunned. All this time, the image of the Dark Witch has always been cold and heartless. I never expected she could have such a pure and kind side. Seeing the Dark Witch's beautiful and radiant smile, Jin Huan suddenly felt like he was in love. Because of these precious experiences, Jin Huan is constantly transforming within it. From this moment on, he no longer needs that so-called vanity. He has found his purpose. He wants to earn everyone's recognition, and protect them always. Jendi is relieved for him. That brat has finally matured a bit. After the rankings were finalized, the top 10 remained the same commanders. Then everyone was teleported inside the 12th floor's palace. Little Cutie ran over to praise him, but Jin Huan stopped him, because he had an announcement to make. Hadn't the commanders promised Jin Huan they'd do one thing unconditionally? Now it was time to keep their promise. Jin Huan stated that from now on, all of you will stay inside the palace. Do nothing. I will break through to the 20th level by myself within 5 days. The leaders were absolutely shocked. This is simply impossible. The Black Witch kindly reminded Jin Huan not to be overly self-reflective. You have to understand, it took our entire army years to barely break through to the 10th level. But Jinwen's mind was made up. He sincerely asked everyone to listen to his request. No matter what happens, just wait here for me for 5 days. After he finished speaking, the giant tower began to announce the rewards for the 11th floor. But because of Jinwen's previous actions, the Demon King couldn't find an opportunity to sow discord. Frustrated, he urged Jin Huan to quickly choose his reward. But Jin Huan remained unmoved. Little Cutie looked at Jin Huan indulgently, and finally decided to agree to his request. After all, Jin Huan had provided all that valuable intel before. Plus, we commanders promised him we'd do one thing unconditionally. So, reasonably speaking, we had no grounds to object. Black Witch had a bit of a headache. Although he is very worried about Jin Huan's safety, there's nothing more he can do. However, the leaders have agreed, but it seems the old saint hasn't approved. He had made an agreement with Jin Huan before. During this period, he would observe him 24 hours a day, no matter where he is. Jin Huan thinks it's great, but if there are multiple sword saints by my side helping me defeat the Demon King, it would give me even more confidence. After saying goodbye to everyone, Jin Huan turned and left, but as soon as he pushed open the door, the two of them were stunned by what they saw. All the NPCs and the scenery had turned gray. It was as if time had frozen in place. Jin Huan was explaining, "It might be because we didn't choose any rewards or positions. These tasks and levels that require role-playing haven't been activated. That's why it turned out like this." While speaking, Chiao and the Demon King were urging Jin to choose the rewards quickly, but Jin didn't pay attention to them, because he thought of a good idea. He wants to take out the Demon King here in advance. Then Jin Huan pulled out a minimap, and found the Demon King's location. Just as the two were preparing to head to the location, the Demon King finally lost his patience. He angrily revealed his true form, appearing abruptly before them, and warned Jin Huan to follow the rules immediately. Follow the procedure. Jin Huan picked up the holy sword, and pointed it at the Demon King's nose, saying, "I'm going to break the rules, and kill you right here. This way, no one else will die tragically at your hands, because I want a happy ending." Hearing this, the Demon King flew into a rage. He transformed into a pool of vicious black water, rushing towards Jin Huan to devour him. However, within this stone pavilion world, Jin Huan is an eternally invincible being. He possesses the ability to infinitely resurrect and restart. However, Qi Jin underestimated the Demon King. Every time he fought the Demon King, he was killed in one blow. So, he began to record his number of deaths. 1, 2, 5, 100 times. Every time he dies, he draws a mark on his hand. And so, he starts over again and again. Then, he dies. But during this time, the Sword Emperor continues to teach him forbidden techniques. Soon, Hans Jin Kongzi can challenge the Demon King, and he also develops special feelings for the Demon King. Every time, the Demon King can see the smile on Jin Kongzi's face. The Demon King was also very confused by this. Why could he still laugh so happily even though he was about to die? The Demon King was repeatedly inspired. He suddenly swung his halberd. Once again, he killed Jin Kongzi. Although he died again and again, every time, his worship would be done better than the last. Until one time, they cleared the 11th level. No one died. He saved everyone's lives. At this moment, the witch tightly held his hand, covered in marks. With a grateful expression, she said, "Thank you. Everyone made it out alive." Then, Jin Kongzi resumed challenging the Demon King, but this time, it's different from before. Suddenly, there was an explosion in the sky. The Dark Witch appeared by his side. Jin Kongzi looked at the suddenly appearing witch. "Since you've come, then this time, let's play a two-player game." The man fought to defeat the Demon King. He directly summoned over 4,000 copies of himself. He was ready to crush the Demon King. It turns out that after Jin Kongzi was killed by the Demon King, he directly copied the skill of the 100 Ghost Summon. This skill can summon people he has killed to turn into skeletons. At this moment, the Demon King directly used the 100 Ghost Summon. The Demon King's army charged towards Jin Kongzi. Just when the witch was about to escape with him to Shuni, he also shouted to the sky, summoning the 100 ghosts. Over 4,000 skeleton warriors suddenly appeared around him. It turns out this skill even counts as self-harm. In other words, all 4,000 of these skeleton warriors are actually his own fearsome clones. At this point, the entire battlefield was filled with the undead army. Even the Lich King called it impressive. The Dark Sorceress and the Scoundrel Emperor were left speechless. This skill is way too overpowered for him. Witnessing this scene, the Autumn Rain Demon King was dumbfounded. A mere ant dares to possess the same skill as I. He absolutely could not tolerate this. Then, the Golden Confucius said to the Sword Saint, "Please join the battle alongside the skeletons. With you, we definitely won't lose." The Black Witch also joined the fight. Having said that, the Golden Confucius raised his holy sword. The command was given, and the skeleton army began their attack. Countless skeletons charged toward the Demon King's army. The skeletons fought recklessly, undeterred by death. The entire battlefield was instantly overrun by the skeleton army. Countless monsters were completely wiped out. The Sword Emperor watched from the sidelines, laughing heartily. The Demon King saw this scene, and clenched his fists. A mere creature from the first world dares to stand before me. Jin Kongzi stood before the Demon King, holy sword raised. "My presence here gives me the right to stop you. As for where I come from, none of your damn business." With that, Jin Kongzi leaped towards the Demon King, attacking. At this moment, the tower suddenly announced a prompt. "Congratulations, you have earned the title of Lord of Death. Salute to the king who harvests death." The young master once again fought against the Demon King, but even so, he still couldn't harm the Demon King in the slightest. However, he started to record the Demon King's every attack move and habit. Thus, he died once again. But this time, he saw the Demon Lord's painful and miserable life. It turns out the Autumn Rain Demon Lord, who devours all living beings, was once a saint, worshipped by all. In his memory, the Demon Lord wasn't initially a complete life form, but he had a special ability. As long as he devoured someone, he could completely replicate the life form of the person he devoured, including the other person's memories, emotions, and so on. At first, he was just some animal, until one day, he devoured a little girl. For the first time, he felt the poisonous air of humanity. He felt the warmth of a family. And so, gradually, he slowly became the Virgin Mary, because he could cure any disease in anyone. But what people didn't know was, his cure wasn't a simple transplant. He devoured the critically ill whole, and then created a new life. In this way, he continuously devoured lives, and then created new ones. However, the good times didn't last, because Esther's influence gradually grew stronger. The goddess felt her authority was being undermined. As a result, the imperial soldiers believed Esther was the witch. The imperial army, in order to eliminate these witches, set fire to villages, and cruelly killed all the innocent villagers. They didn't even spare the children. They witnessed this brutal scene. He swore not to spare anyone in the empire, until he had devoured them all. Thus, the Autumn Rain Demon King was born. He was once the protector of a city, a saint, but he was falsely accused by the empire's army as a demon. And so, one night, the empire's army ruthlessly destroyed his city, murdered all the innocent citizens. Witnessing these scenes, the saint is completely transformed into a demon king who devours everything. However, in Jin Confucius's eyes, the Demon King's tragic experiences weren't worthy of sympathy. His healing was actually devouring and then recreating life. These actions violate human ethics. Jin Confucius continued to battle the Demon King. The Dark Witch beside him gazed at the handsome Confucius, her eyes filled with the aura of love. The Dark Witch also gives everyone a little romance benefit. At this moment, the Demon King ends this love with a single strike. Confucius dies once again in shock. The scene returns to 24 hours earlier. With every death, Jin Confucius retains his abilities and memories. And so, he grows stronger with each battle. He repeatedly experiences the friendship and love on the battlefield. The Demon King used the summon of 100 ghosts once again. It had been 3 days since Jin Kongzi last used the summon of 100 ghosts. After another round of death, Jin Kongzi began to act more recklessly in front of the Demon King. The cooldown of the summon of 100 ghosts skill was also over. Jin Huan Kongzi used the summon of 100 ghosts once again. Immediately afterward, he crouched down, then leapt up forcefully. He raised the holy sword and charged at the Demon King. The final power strike. The Sword Emperor said. Although it didn't hurt the Demon King, this move was still quite impressive. In the blink of an eye, during the Sword Emperor's rapid strikes, Jin Kongzi got distracted. As a result, he accidentally died again. This made the Golden Confucius of the Dead Space speak foul words. This death will cause another week of trouble. The Sword Emperor wore a smug expression, mocking the Golden Ring. What are you going to do about it? Time shifted back to the battlefield. The Golden Confucius commanded the Black Witch and the Sword Saint to dodge attacks and let the Black Witch find the perfect moment to unleash her ultimate move. Dark energy surrounded the witch. A pentagram formation was formed. A roar was heard. Dark wave. A tremendously powerful beam of black energy shot out. The attack pierced right through the Demon King's body. He clutched his great sword, gravely wounded. Seeing this, Confucius immediately urged the witch to press her advantage. The witch quickly rushed towards the Demon King. She scattered all the black mirrors around him. Then, all the black mirrors unleashed their energy, blowing the Demon King to smithereens. At this moment, the Demon King could no longer maintain his giant form, and a human face slowly emerged. Seeing this, Jin Kongzi was shocked. The Demon King's body began to dissipate. The next moment, the tower's notification came. Xiaoyu Demon King has chosen to retreat to the 13th floor. The three of them finally smiled, looking at the now empty battlefield. The giant tower issued a flurry of notifications. Floors 12, 20's trials have been altered. A hidden quest appeared before Jin Kongzi. Quest name, Hero in a Stagnant World. The truth is about to be revealed. Next episode preview, Jin Kongzi clears the 20th floor. This black-haired beauty forces the Xiaoyu Demon King to retreat with just one blow. With the Demon King's escape, the history of the Great Tower was changed as a result, and a hidden quest appeared above King Kongzi's head. Countless blue light spots began to drift across the land. The Black Witch looked at the falling stars and asked King Kongzi what was going on. King Kongzi also looked bewildered. He said he had never encountered anything like this before. Even though he was well versed in many things, this was the first time he had seen such a phenomenon. At that moment, they suddenly looked toward the city walls. The current appearance was completely different from the past. In an instant, they teleported to the top of the city walls and gazed toward the city. The once dark and ruined city had, due to the change in history, instantly transformed into a bustling street filled with life. It was as if the entire empire had never been invaded by the Demon King. The once vigilant imperial guards were now relaxed and carefree. The Dark Witch is watching all of this. What should have been an invasion by the Demon King has now completely disappeared without a trace. The merchants on the street are enthusiastically shouting their wares, as the two quietly admire the beautiful sights of the empire. General Base downstairs suddenly shouts at them, "Who are you? How dare you climb the city wall without permission? Get down here immediately." Jin Kongzi stared blankly at the general below, who was roaring in anger. He remembered how, in the past, he had been entrusted with protecting the empire for the sake of the emperor. Now, he had finally achieved his dream. Jin Kongzi lowered his head and laughed aloud. Then, he shouted at General Base below, "General Base, I've protected the empire for you. I've kept our promise. For hundreds of days. I don't feel a shred of guilt, and there were absolutely no consequences. I did it. I have a clear conscience." The Dark Witch beside him also turned to look at Golden Boy. And at that moment, the giant tower announced the rankings. But the name in first place was no longer Golden Boy, but it's the title the tower bestowed upon him, King of Death. General Bath was dumbfounded. He suspected this guy might have a screw loose. The Sword Emperor beside him was also amused by Golden Boy. Then Golden Boy turned to the witch and extended his hand, preparing to teleport to the 13th floor together. But the witch looked at him with disgust. Then the witch said, "I knew the stronger the hunter, the more abnormal they are." After joking around, they clasped hands, prepared to fight to the death. But the moment they teleported to the 13th floor, they were instantly stunned by the scene before them. The Autumn Rain Demon King was standing right in front of them. The Sword Saint and the Black Witch immediately took up fighting stances. Gold Confucius also drew his holy sword. The Sword Emperor looked at the Demon King in the distance with confusion. He seemed much weaker than before. Jin Kongzi looked at the sword in shock. So that means the Demon King is injured now. We can kill him more easily. As Jin Kongzi wondered why the Demon King had become weaker, the tower started unlocking the treasure map as a reward for completing the 12th floor. It unlocked all the terrain from the 11th to the 20th floors. After seeing the map information, Jean Kongzi excitedly looked at the two witches. So they've returned to a time before the Demon King invaded the Empire. That explains why the Demon King is weaker. He hasn't committed widespread slaughter yet, and the Empire hasn't been ravaged by war. Golden Confucius draws his holy sword. He watches the Demon King standing there, sword in hand. His presence begins to change. The Demon King roars and lunges at Golden Confucius. The three of them shall die. Bastards who don't follow the rules. The man just killed the Demon King, Zhou Yu. In the blink of an eye, the Demon King is revived in front of the three of them again. The Demon King is furiously screaming at the three who had just killed him. And all of this happened because Jean Kongzi defeated the Demon King. This changed the history of the Great Tower. They arrived at the time before the Demon King attacked the Empire. This also caused the Demon Lord at this time to be less difficult to kill than on the 12th floor. At this point, the Demon Lord summoned countless zombies to begin the attack. The Sword Saint and the Dark Sorceress began to counterattack. At this moment, Jean Kongzi was betting with the Sword Emperor on how many times he would die before reaching the 20th floor. The Sword Emperor, looking at Jean Kongzi who was fighting valiantly, said, "I bet you'll die fewer than 100 times. Jean Kongzi shamelessly replied, "Then I'll bet I'll die fewer than 99 times. Then, just like on the 12th floor, Jean Kongzi continued to die in battle, and they were searching for the secrets to level strategy within it. After dozens of deaths and respawns, all the minions were nearly taken care of. Now, only the Cyclops remains. Jean Kongzi immediately directed the Dark Sorceress to attack the Giant's Eye. Upon hearing this, the Dark Sorceress was instantly intrigued. She immediately launched an attack on the Giant's Eye, but before they could celebrate, the Giant's eyes shot out flames directly, turning them into ashes. After waiting for one cycle, Golden Confucius told the Dark Sorceress not to shoot his eyes. Upon hearing this, the Dark Sorceress looked disappointed. Such beautiful eyes, not attacking them is a waste. Then the group started coordinating. The battle ends with the Sword Saint's earth-shattering strike. The Demon King then retreats to the 14th floor. With the Demon King's retreat, the world on the 13th floor regains its original vitality. And so, the three of them continued their assault, destroying the tower, floor by floor, until they reached the 19th floor. The Demon King transformed into a size comparable to an ordinary person. He is now incredibly weak. He slumps on the ground like a shy woman. Immediately, King Kong pulled out the holy sword. Single-handedly, he charged at the Demon King. With just one strike, he cleaved through the Demon King's body. Then, he kept cutting into the Demon King's fragile body, one strike after another. The Demon King's presence began to fade. His body grew smaller and smaller. The final Demon Lord retreated unwillingly to the 20th floor. Jean Confucius then turned and bowed to the Sword Saint and the Witch. "Thank you both for accompanying me on this journey. I want to go and settle things with the Demon Lord alone now." With that, Jean Confucius teleported away. With the teleportation complete, Jean Confucius arrived at the 20th level. The area was filled with the songs of birds and fragrant flowers. A lone, weak Demon King stood in the center. Jean Kongzi raised his holy sword, pointing it at the Demon King. "This ends now," he declared, accompanied by Esther's struggling cries. The final stage officially began. The Demon King, Zhou Yu, finally reached the end of his life. He had witnessed the destruction of his homeland by humans. The Empire, in an attempt to eradicate what they considered a dangerous organization. None of the elderly or children in the village were spared. All of them met a tragic death at the hands of the Empire's soldiers. Poor Aster couldn't accept the reality before him. He blankly walked toward the villagers' bodies. Even though they were burned beyond recognition, he could still recognize them. He grabbed the villagers' ashes, desperately trying to recreate them with his hands. Clearly, it was already too late. At this moment, everyone's memories flooded into his mind. Boundless pain and resentment filled his heart, and black tears began to stream from the corners of his eyes. Then, Aster slowly stood up. Black water began to spread outward from his feet. He began to think about taking revenge on the kingdom. And now, karma had come full circle. Jean Confucius, to save the empire ravaged by the Demon King, he arrived at the 20th floor of the giant tower. He stood before the final autumn rain Demon King. The air was filled with the scent of flowers and birdsong. Only a frail Demon King stood alone in the center. Jean Kongzi raised the holy sword, pointing it at the Demon King, and said, "This should end now." Accompanied by Ace's desperate cries, the final dungeon officially began at this moment. Even though the Demon King had now become a fragile woman, but in order to protect his own life from before, he still chose to fight to the death against Jean Kongzi. However, how could he possibly be a match for Jean Kongzi now? He swung his great sword aimlessly, but to Jean Kongzi, it was like fighting a child. With a single, light strike, he could severely injure the Demon King. The Demon King's presence began to fade, until the final blow. The black mud on the Demon King has completely faded. The giant tower also revoked the title of Autumn Rain Demon King, but he still wants to desperately hold on to the disappearing power. However, it's already too late for that. Confucius Jean looks at the blonde beauty in front of him. Esther stares at Jean in terror. Confucius Jean shouts at him to ignore it. You humans are all cruel and heartless creatures. Jean Kongzi slowly walked towards him, sword in hand. I know about your past. But I don't pity you. You think you saved the village, but what did you actually do? You mercilessly devoured that poor girl. Her father lost the you he once knew. And that baby. They trusted you so much. And yet, you devoured that sea. He smugly thought he had saved you. At this moment, Esther loudly protested. It wasn't like that. I had no idea at the time. When I devoured the girl, I had no human spine. I had no knowledge at all. If I had known, I would never do that. Jean Kongzi retorted, how is the Empire treating you? Any different from how you treat girls? What's done is done. There's no point dwelling on it. Now you have to bear the consequences. Jean Kongzi turned and summoned his skill, preparing to use it. The 19th floor skill acquisition, an upgraded version of 100 Ghost Summoning. This skill allows me to summon and preserve the lives of enemies I've killed. He plans to use Esther's healing method to kill him and then recreate him. He will treat Esther fairly. However, just as Kim Kongja was about to activate the skill, Esther suddenly launched a final resistance. But this attack had no effect. He attacked Kim Kongja again, but in the next instant, Golden Confucius cleaved his greatsword in two with a single stroke. Looking at Ast, kneeling on the ground, he prepared to deliver the final blow. But Visible Emperor suddenly asked, what if you can't summon him after killing an NPC? Golden Confucius looked at Ast, slumped on the ground, and asked the giant tower directly if he could use a skill to summon Ast. The giant tower replied that the question exceeded its authority. The tower immediately notified that the issue has been upgraded to an official topic. It is now being submitted to the 6 pillars of Wancheng for a vote. This man simply asked the most basic question. As a result, it directly alerted the 6 creator gods of the tower. It turns out that after defeating the Autumn Rain Demon King, Jean Kongzi wanted to kill Aster, then use a skill to resurrect him. But because it was an NPC resurrection, Jean Kongzi was afraid his skill summon would fail, so he posed his question to the giant tower. But the tower didn't have the authority to answer him, so it directly initiated a meeting of the 6 pillars. They began to discuss whether the 100 Ghosts summoning skill could affect NPCs. A vote was called. Jean Kongzi's mind was suddenly plunged into darkness. The 6 pillars began to vote. The 6th pillar, the Crown Prince, is opposed. The 5th pillar, Mirage, is in favor. The remaining 3 pillars have also cast their votes. At this point, there are 2 votes against, 2 votes in favor, and 1 abstained. Only 1 person is still contemplating. At this moment, Jean Kongzi also had an idea, and I shared my idea. At that moment, the creator of the giant tower said, your idea sounds good. I agree with your idea. So the last vote was cast, and Jean Kongzi slowly returned to reality. Jiandi pointed at the dazed Jean Kongzi, what are you spacing out for? I told you to ask if the tower's abilities can be used. Jean Kongzi looked at his body blankly, thinking about the scene I just witnessed. He gripped the holy sword at his waist. In the next instant, he pointed it directly at Aster, and finished him off with a single sword stroke. But in the next moment, Jean Kongzi used 100 Ghosts summoning to resurrect him. He looked at the recreated life before him. From today onwards, you shall be called Evil Ghost. The old name can no longer be used. The demon lord slightly lowers his head. Yes, my lord, I will obey your command. At this moment, there is confusion. Why is the once invincible demon lord now so submissive? You will understand why very soon. At this moment, the tower also announces, no demon lord detected on the 20th floor. The blue light disperses. History changes once again. The demon looks at the village it once knew, hands covering its face, muttering quietly, pleading. It can't be, not at this moment. Outside the village, the imperial army has arrived. The demon collapses to the ground in despair. He begged Confucius Jean, saying that he didn't care what was required of him. Please, save my paradise. Upon learning of this, he suddenly understood. So that's how it is. Confucius Jean readily agreed. Since you're my lady, I will protect you. At this moment, Jean Kongzi stopped in front of the army. General Bas, seeing the person before him, instantly roared, insolent. Who is this fool? How dare you block my path? Jean Kongzi looked at the familiar faces before him. They were the imperial soldiers he had saved on the previous floors. So, what will Jean Kongzi do next? Is he blocking everything for the beauty, or personally taking down these imperial generals? The once invincible Autumn Rain Demon King now kneels obediently on the ground like a well-behaved girl, and listens to everything Confucius Jean says. He does whatever he's told, until he becomes so exhausted that he can't move, collapsing to the ground. After Jean Confucius summoned the evil spirits again, the imperial army prepared to attack his homeland. Jean Confucius stood before the army, ready to persuade them to abandon their attack. He then drew his holy sword. A dazzling light momentarily blinded everyone. Jean Confucius roared, I am a high-ranking minister of the imperial family. General Barth immediately dropped to one knee. The great Aegean Empire, may it shine forever. The other team members, upon seeing this scene, also knelt on one knee to pay their respects to the first emperor. The officials of the empire and the lowly emperor beside them, seeing Jean Kongzi's boasting, couldn't help but marvel. I didn't expect you to be so good at bragging. But I must remind you of one thing. The most important thing about bragging is confidence. To trick someone, you must first deceive yourself. Jean Kongzi silently watched the kneeling soldiers. The nobles and elves beside him were also very surprised. They didn't expect an official of the first emperor to be here. General Bath then voiced his confusion. We came here to subjugate the witch. But why would your excellency come to such a small place? Confidently, Jean Kongzi loudly said to the imperial lords. The witch has already been defeated by me. He then pointed behind him. Everyone's gaze immediately shifted to the blonde beauty kneeling on the ground. Jean Kongzi then waved at the evil spirit. He knelt before the army. Lower your head. The forehead touches the ground. The evil spirit trembled all over. Yet, it still kowtowed to the emperor. But that wasn't the end. The golden Confucius then ordered it to push its feet against the ground and flip forward. The evil spirit, kneeling on the ground, looked completely confused. But it still followed its master's command. Next, the golden Confucius became playful, making the evil spirit do all sorts of exercises. 20 jumping jacks, 10 squats, push-ups, planks, doing them non-stop, until the evil spirit collapses on the ground, unable to support its weak body any longer. See, as you can see, I've defeated the witch. General Lars and the imperial army were stunned. Is that even allowed? While the imperial army hesitated, a lizard man shouted and stepped forward. The situation is actually quite simple. Is that boy an official of the first emperor? Is that woman a true demon? We only need to confirm these two things. So what the young man said is true. How do you plan to confirm it? The lizard man took out a blue orb. As long as you drop blood on it, you will know whether you are good or evil. Are you willing to accept the test with this red glowing soul orb? Just drop human blood on it, and you will see the state of the soul. However, after the male protagonist's blood landed on the testing device, it emitted a radiant, dazzling light. This stunned the lizard man who had just proposed the test. Everyone was nearly blinded by the dazzling light. What kind of soul is this? How many lives has he saved? He's the very embodiment of light. The lizard man looked at him in astonishment, tears streaming down his face. He must be an official of the first emperor. No, he is clearly the messenger of the goddess. Then he quickly pulled up the evil spirit's arm. A drop of fresh blood slipped directly from his palm. It then quickly dripped onto the jewel from earlier. The jewel, which was just shining brightly, instantly turned pitch black. The lizard man was once again horrified. The darkness had reached a level even a demon king would possess. At this moment, Jean Kongzi wore a cold expression. He said, I am actually the messenger of the goddess. At this point, the imperial leaders began to discuss. The elves were also quite confused. At this moment, a general stepped forward. Even if he is the incarnation of light, why does he block our path? Has everyone forgotten? Do we have to burn that place down? The evil spirit heard this. It lowered its head and silently tugged at Jean Kongzi's sleeve. At this moment, Emperor Jian spoke again. The highest level of bragging is composed of 90% truth and 10% lies. Jean Kongzi looked at the paladin who was speaking. Please be careful with your words. It is also up to me to decide the execution of divine punishment. I've cleaned up all the evil. With that, Jean Kongzi immediately initiated the 100 ghost summoning. Countless skeleton soldiers appeared before the army. These are all the tasks I've completed. The goddess gave me an order. She asked me to eradicate the evil in this world in her place. My mission is to send demons to hell. This is my task. He finished speaking. He immediately eliminated all the skeletons. The paladin hurriedly asked the emissary, were these demons imprisoned by you in a safe place? Jean Kongzi summoned another skeleton. The paladin watched nervously, as the skeleton instantly began to recover. The next moment, the Flame Emperor appeared. He grabbed Jean Kongzi's collar directly. What the hell is your problem with me? Why do you want to do this to me? Jean Kongzi ignored the shadow of this mortal. He explained to the others that this man was also a cruel demon, but he had been completely subdued and controlled by me. After saying that, he snapped his fingers. The Flame Emperor suddenly started dancing on the spot. This seductive dance is beyond description. So, will you still worry about the witch doing evil? The paladin grips his sword with one hand. May I ask, esteemed messenger, what is your name? My name is Confucius. In the next moment, everyone kneels simultaneously. We will obey Lord Confucius. At that moment, the tower's prompt sounds. The sky begins to recover. Future clearance rewards begin to be calculated. GND laughs loudly. You little brat, you passed the Demon King's level with just your mouth. Confucius stays silent. The evil next to him. Actually, the tower doesn't care about the outcome. Whether the village is engulfed by fire, whether it's like this harmonious and peaceful present, it's just one outcome. This ending is my choice. At this moment, fireworks went off from the giant tower. The countdown started again. The Black Witch also smoothly came up, and threw herself into Jean Kongzi's arms. You actually cleared 20 floors in 5 days. Look, everyone is talking about you now. Kid, you're really impressive. Tell your sister what kind of award you want. I can give you whatever you wish. The once cold and ruthless Dark Witch has now been completely conquered by an S-rank hunter. And he even flirted with the innocent Golden Confucius, saying, Kid, you're really impressive. If you want any reward, I can satisfy you, sister. Jean Kongzi looked at the girl in front of him, his face red with embarrassment. Is this cute girl an angel? If she's not an angel, then she must be a goddess. At this moment, the Dark Witch also jumped off Jean Kongzi's body, and held up a newspaper from the tower to show Jean Kongzi. The hunter leaderboard is prominently displayed above, and the Lord of Death is ranked 3rd. Jean Kongzi stared at the newspaper in surprise. Now, you need to think about your future path. You've now joined 5 major guilds at the same time. This also means you don't belong to any one guild. So, you should now have the title of a guild leader. Of course, if you want to be a lone wolf like the old master, the scheming saint, that works too. Jean Kongzi glanced at the evil spirit beside him. Let's first take care of some matters on the 20th floor. As for the guild leader and so on, we'll talk about it once we get to the residential area. The dark sorceress laughed happily. Thanks to you, we can finally trade inside the tower. No need to grovel to the old men in the outside world anymore. Those bastards always threaten me with food. I'll lend you my title for trade. I'm now an official under the first emperor, and also a messenger of the goddess. The Dark Witch, hearing this, unexpectedly looked at Confucius. Then borrowing your name shouldn't be free, right? Of course, I hope the land on the 20th floor will belong to me, but I won't take floors 11 to 19. Through rewards, and any profits from trade, please share them with the other hunters. Compared to money, I prefer real estate and land. Just as everyone was about to leave, the Black Witch looked at the person shedding humiliating tears. What's going on with this person? Black Dragon Master, just pretend you didn't see anything. After saying this, everyone teleported to the first floor's crown prince. The Black Witch also opened the portal. Jean Kongzi saw what was outside, and froze for a moment. Countless reporters and cameras were focused on him, bombarding him. He followed the Black Witch, walking amidst the crowd. Countless reporters rushed towards him, asking all sorts of questions. He had fantasized about this scene countless times. Now, actually facing it, he was a little at a loss. The Black Witch instructed from the side, don't say anything. Maintain a mysterious persona. Jean Kongzi caught on quickly. He walked silently through the crowd. Soon, they arrived at the tavern they had been to earlier. The 5 guild leaders were already waiting for him there. At this moment, the Dark Witch spoke first. I want to make Jean Kongzi a hero representing our tower. The Count is too fond of money, and the Chief Justice has killed too many people. As for the Paladin, he doesn't want the attention. Then there's the sharp-tongued one. Sorry. You really look too sorry. The Sword Saint Elder, on the other hand, is immersed in his sword. So now, only the Lord of Death is the most suitable. The judge at one end immediately stood up. In an instant, he ran to Confucius Jin's side, and started gossiping. Confucius Jin was horrified by the questions. So, I tugged on the Black Witch and said, didn't you tell me to maintain a mysterious persona? How did it turn into this? The Black Witch stared at Golden Confucius with hazy eyes, and said softly, I beg you. Just help me out for today. Everyone wants to know who you really are. For those following the updates, search for the comic Time Hunter. Please support the creator. This beautiful girl, just by acting a little spoiled, has the Giant Tower's #1 warrior wrapped around her finger. At this moment, Golden Confucius is helplessly being posed by the photographer, while the Union presidents chat leisurely nearby. Seeing his younger brother roaring with laughter, Golden Confucius finally snaps. With a snap, he threw off his coat. It's because you guys always care about these meaningless things, that you can't even break through the 10th floor. Everyone turned to look at Jining. But in the next moment, they returned to the scene of their previous conversation. They paid no attention to Jean Kongzi's complaints. At this point, Jean Kongzi was even angrier. The Sword Saint spoke at this moment and said, give up. When I first reached the top of the leaderboard, the same thing happened. Those kids just wanted to show the outside world, to express that we are doing well, driven by a sense of inferiority. Although they dropped everything to come to the tower, there was still a trace of resentment in their hearts. Let's go. Staying here any longer would be a waste. So the two of them activated their skills and escaped, taking the Black Witch with them. They didn't forget to remind her about the press conference tomorrow. Remember to come back. Meanwhile, Jean Kongzi and the others arrived at an empty room. He was the first to speak, asking, in your eyes, Sword Saint, I'm a mass murderer, right? But when you look in the mirror, do you also see a mass murderer? But you don't think you're guilty. So, Sword Saint, I'm actually walking the same path as you right now. You don't really need to make me understand in this way. Most people ranked high in the tower have been deeply hurt in the outside world. But my life has been miserable. I feel like a flower in a greenhouse. But I don't want to accept this version of myself. That's why I came to the tower to prove myself. But this confidence seems to be slowly becoming my stumbling block. I rely too much on skills now. I should trust my own eyes and hands. So now I ask you, have you ever killed an innocent life? The tower then offered a boost, compelling Jin Kongzi to speak his true heart. I've never done such a thing. Mr. Sword Saint. Of course, there will be no more answers from Confucius Jin in the future. Without hesitation, the Sword Saint repelled his prostitute. From now on, I will trust what my own eyes see. Then, these 5 days will require my daughter to cooperate with the steps of this old man. After saying this, the Sword Saint immediately turned and left. In that brief moment, Jin Kongzi collapsed on the ground. Finally succeeded. At this moment, the goddess also appeared to show her approval of Jin Kongzi. Jin Kongzi looked at the sword hilt, wondering why the goddess suddenly responded to me. The guardian goddess allows you to summon her. Goddess, please lower your head and look down. Jin Kongzi instantly looked at the sword in his left hand. Wait a minute. Could the will of the guardian goddess be the spirit of this sword? The guardian goddess expresses affirmation. He was once a constellation within the tower. He was once revered as a goddess by others. But because the empire split him into 5 swords, and then sealed each one separately, he is the first holy sword, the holy knight. There are 4 others. They are mercy, sacrifice of prayer. If we gather these 5 sister swords, we will be able to restore his former glory, Winnie. At this point, Jin Kongzi asked, do you know the whereabouts of the other 4 swords? The goddess of protection has the authority to annihilate. So, if you don't gather all 5 swords, you're useless. Right, holy sword. A burst of light. The great sage declares that he's not useless. While King Kong is speechless, he's already tired of seeing this. At this point, it's time for the press conference. King Kong and the Dark Sorceress are seated on the stage. After the classic opening remarks, the Dark Sorceress starts to get to the point. This time, our strategy has 0 casualties. Everyone, please take a look. Each stone here is engraved with a name. These are the predecessors who sacrificed themselves in the strategy. And today, no one will be under the thunder here. At this moment, there are only 5 minutes left before the opening of the 21st floor of the giant tower. The Dark Sorceress is ready to begin and end this press conference. But just then, someone raised their hand and asked, what is the relationship between the Dark Dragon Lord and the Lord of Death? The Dark Sorceress smiled wickedly and said, good question. Our relationship is beyond that of just friends. That's all for today. Thank you, everyone. After the event ends, the 2 of them step down together. Then, the Dark Sorceress directly grabs Jin Kongzi's hands. You performed very well today. If you want anything, just tell me directly. Fame, money, or even a lover. I can satisfy you. Meanwhile, the countdown in the sky has only 5 seconds left. Countdown ends. The goddess descends from the sky again. After the Iron Beast, everyone was directly teleported to 21Z. After landing, a child in white clothes appeared in front of them. Welcome to the Grand Round Museum of All Phenomena. This is a world made entirely of books. But all the books here are treasures. Each book is an independent world. But the librarian here is not following the rules. He picks up a completely black book and immediately absorbs the 50 people attacking the tower. He then turns to the remaining hunters and says, welcome to the Grand Universal Museum. The Dark Witch directly asks, who are you? The librarian replies, I'm just managing this rather large library. He then walks up to Confucius in gold. It seems you are the Lord of Death. Everyone, don't be afraid. I just wanted to give you all a warm welcome. The books I've collected are quite special. For example, they record your histories, and the histories of the world you come from. And everyone who's made it here is a hunter granted a title by the tower. 302 hunters in total. But considering the 50 I just devoured, there are now 252 of you left. The Black Witch was greatly surprised. Are we the only ones attacking the tower? The curator said, everyone, don't worry. With just the 3 of you, you can protect the Egyptian Empire. Now there are nearly 300 people. You will definitely succeed in clearing the stage. Next, it's time to release the mission. First, I need to inform you all that the books in the collection are not ordinary books. This is a vast library that records countless worlds. This is the world you've already conquered. And this is your original world. These books are referred to by many different names, but I like to call them revelations. But not every revelation can be smoothly serialized. Some revelations must face interruptions in serialization. There is more than one such world. Countless worlds are like this. This is the reason why this apocalypse was interrupted. Then what is the reason why that other one was interrupted? What a tragic event. It's because all sorts of unjust reasons led to everything ending prematurely. Of course, if this is difficult to understand, you can simply call them extinctions. Now, please choose 8 of these interrupted apocalypses as the worlds to be saved. I want to continue observing these perishing worlds. I ask you all to personally prevent the destruction of these 8 worlds. The random tower task list also appeared before everyone. The difficulty of the task is undetermined. The objective, ignite the hope of life in these dying worlds. After saying this, he summoned 30 Lolita paper cutouts to serve everyone. Then, he announced the rules that needed attention. First, books are absolutely not allowed to be touched without my permission. But before the curator could finish, a clown shows up to provoke him. The witch is watching these idiots. She is about to step forward to stop them. But suddenly, Master Jean stops her. It's because they are currently live streaming. Everyone outside the tower is watching. They can't do anything that would damage their image. But the director doesn't care about that. He glanced at these hunters looking for death with a sinister expression. He took out a book without hesitation. As soon as he opened it, it instantly consumed those who had been provoking him. Then, with a snap, he closed the book. Now, it's time for you to seriously think about how to choose to save the world. This man has the ability to see through people's hearts. But he uses this ability to gaze at the goddess he's admired for so long. A pink system task panel suddenly appeared. It clearly displayed that his favorability towards the man had reached 4.5 stars. So once it reaches 5 stars, he can achieve his goal. It also showed the various preferences of the Black Witch. However, all of this stemmed from the recent clearance reward that Jean Comsey received. He had obtained the blessing of the Goddess of Beauty. He had received the Super BUG card. With his confidence skyrocketing, he appeared with that. However, he looked at the Dark Witch, lost in thought. Coupled with his current mental state and his hobbies, Terror Kid froze, completely stunned. Emperor Jian also burst into laughter after seeing the character panel. This cold and elegant witch actually likes Prince Charming. Terror Kid, quickly go get a white horse. I'm sure you can instantly capture the goddess's heart. This is an instant win. Confucius Jean faced the Sword Emperor's mockery. He immediately triggered the Sword Emperor's character flaw. It was such a moving moment, 3 stars of affection for the character, Mom. Confucius Jean immediately gave a deadpan smile. I didn't expect this burly man to have a special mother complex. The Sword Emperor immediately sensed something was wrong. He threatened Confucius Jean, saying, if you dare to speak of this, I'll kill you. Break off with you. At this moment, the librarian spoke to everyone again. Has everyone made their decision? Does anyone want to be the main character? However, everyone had just witnessed the librarian's actions. Many people were curled up in corners, trembling in fear. No one responded. The librarian, now terrified, stood up and said, please take a look at the task pop-up. The most important thing here is the final step. Based on the world you save, the rewards will vary somewhat. If you save a world full of diamonds, then that world will become our 22nd level. Of course, diamonds are just an example. But if it's a world rich in food, water, and various resources, then we can be self-sufficient. In that case, we will no longer need the power of the outside world. We can solve the food problem on our own. Immediately, Jean Comsey picked up a book and began to read it. The others watched as Jean Comsey opened the book, but nothing frightening happened. Everyone was stunned. The librarian spoke up, before I use my ability. These are all ordinary books. They won't devour you like before. So everyone understand, we can't just gather together and read them all. We need to split into groups. Those who can read, go to the left. Those who can't, go to the right. Then those who could read grouped according to their preferences. Now, everyone, let's start reading properly. Soon, everyone began reading enthusiastically. One story after another was found. For example, Solomon's Academy. The story told of 2 people's academic journey and romance. But due to the appearance of demons, the world was destroyed. There is also the story of survival on a volcano. The world has been abandoned due to nuclear war. Only Adam and Eve remain. But one day, the 2 of them went on a date. It happened to be in a volcanic activity zone. Suddenly, the volcano erupted. Humanity was thus wiped out. Along with it, a horse that once challenged to the 29th level. The previous world was all volcanoes and lava zones. Because he is sensitive to flames. But he didn't consider the needs of the people in the tower. So this time, he needs to think more comprehensively. While he was eagerly watching the story unfold, he suddenly saw that the dark sorceress was actually going into the push notifications. At this moment, Confucius was very confused. Didn't the character window just say he liked romantic stories? Could it be he's afraid people will find out he likes romance novels? Jean Comsey nervously said to the Black Witch, I thought you were a romantic. I didn't see you in the romance section. I'm a little surprised. Really? Do I seem like the type to be into romance? If you were in any other section, I'd find it very strange. Well, in that case, then, I'll give the romance section a try. At this moment, Jean Comsey looked towards a judge on the side. The character is attempting to start directly. Jean Comsey, having no other choice, dragged the blonde lowly to the fairy tale section. Just like that, Jean Comsey started sorting everyone into suitable places/roles. At this time, the Black Witch, Fao, said that these revelations all break off at the climax of the plot. It's not convenient to talk about the specific plot during the live broadcast. Come a little closer. Let me tell you something. The Black Witch leaned in close to Golden Boy's ear and began to speak. After a while, each group started to introduce their recommended work. Fairy Tale Group, Our Scapegoat. Martial Arts Group, Demon Devours Deer. However, as everyone was heatedly discussing, Golden Boy's holy sword began to glow. His sister sword is nearby. Jean Kongzi looked at the approaching sword saint. The sister sword's aura emanated from the shu in the sword saint's hand. She was once the guardian goddess of the Aegean Empire, but a single sentence of hers angered her master, the Aegean Emperor. He sealed her directly, splitting her into 5 holy swords. And all of this is the holy sword's memory. It turns out that when Jean Kongzi learned the second sister sword was in a different world, he went to the bathroom to prepare for suicide. He wanted to understand what kind of person the owner of the holy sword was, because the other sword existed in the martial arts world. This meant that Emperor Akin possessed the ability to transcend worlds. Thinking of this, Jean Kongzi immediately drew the holy sword. He pointed it directly at his neck and drank it down. You are dead. Achievement, skill usage condition met. But because the guardian goddess is sealed, she cannot feel loneliness. Soon after, the Sword Emperor and Jean Kongzi arrived in the goddess's memories. Jean Kongzi and the Sword Emperor stood side by side, looking at the silver-haired young man on the throne. The Sword Emperor said, "This person's nickname seems to be the Slaughter Star. He is a madman who specializes in finding constellations and destroying them. That's how he got his name. And the tower is connected to every world. From the 50th floor, you have to compete with hunters from other worlds. So that means King Zahard is also." The hunter attendant replied, "He should be." Watching the conversation between the goddess and Zahard, Constellation thought, "This world doesn't belong to constellations. It belongs to the guardians of humanity." The goddess prayed silently, but Ekin reached out and grabbed the goddess. Caught off guard, the goddess shattered from the blow. "Along this journey, you helped me. I won't kill you, but I will divide and seal you. I'm sorry, this is my only choice." Then Golden Confucius and the Sword Emperor also withdrew from the memory. Looking at the holy sword in his hand, he asked directly, "Why did your previous master seal the holy sword?" He recalled that he was once a silent and solitary man, a warrior filled with righteousness. But why he ultimately abandoned the emperor's holy sword remains unknown. The Sword Emperor waved his hand dismissively. "Don't dwell on it. Hunters are creatures who become crazier the higher their level." Kim Kongja slowly stood up. "As long as I can be as strong as him." The time has come for the Revelation Selection segment once again. Jean Kongzi directly chose the Records of the Heavenly Demon. This is a martial arts event. The librarian also spoke up. The Records of the Heavenly Demon is limited to 2 to 4 participants. However, Jean Kongzi took the lead and stepped forward. Then, Sword Saint followed and also stepped forward. They began to explain the background of the revelation to everyone. "Everyone, pay attention to the last sentence of the Apocalypse. A sudden outbreak of a strange disease caused the demon of heaven to die from infection. Then, others also died as a result. So we need to acquire the most knowledge about diseases. So, Pharmacist King, would you be willing to join us?" At this moment, Confucius Jean also recommended an artist, the pharmacy owner by High. Saying this, he stepped forward and shook his hand. "Miss Apothecary, you are the most capable apothecary and physician among the people I know. I hope you won't reject my request. And didn't you say before that you would help me with any request I have? Well, now I warmly welcome you to join. Dear Miss Apothecary." At this moment, everyone turned their gaze towards Jean Kongzi and the others. The spots for the Demon Road have also been filled. Ihan timidly hides behind Jean Kongzi, watching the Sword Saint. The Sword Saint, stroking his chin, says, "Did you say he's the most skilled alchemist you know?" The Sword Saint ponders. He wants to bring them closer to the Medicine King. However, the Medicine King laughs mockingly, daring to claim he's the most skilled. Such an arrogant little brat. Just look at him. At this moment, Jean Kongzi has a displeased expression, thinking, "Is this old man here to ruin things?" Pharmacist Wang, please calm down. The King of Death is a very talented individual. It's just that he lacks some life experience. He looks just like I did when I made $1 billion in Silicon Valley at the age of 20. Upon hearing this, Jean Kongzi was left dumbfounded. Ihan couldn't help but tease the old man. "If you're so capable, come and compete with me." Having said that, Jean Kongzi took out some medicinal herbs. "Use my herbs to make the medicine. Compare the results. Instantly, the difference will be clear." Jean Kongzi patted Ihan's shoulder. "I believe in you. I'll do my best." Then, the two of them began the preparation under the watchful eyes of the crowd. The Duke also started his process. The odds for both of them had also reached 1.05:40. At this moment, the Medicine King completed his medicinal product. "You brat, behave yourself. Tremble before my great creation." The crowd cheered. "It's a special restoration potion." As expected, the Medicine King. Meanwhile, Ihan's potion was also completed. The potion in his hand emitted a dazzling light. The light directly blinded the hunter's eyes. Even the Duke beside him put on sunglasses to watch. Haha, next episode, the legendary potion will make an appearance. What will the Pharmacy King do after being slapped in the face? He was once an unknown pharmacist in a slum. Now, he's competing on the same stage as the world's strongest Pharmacy King. The Pharmacy King directly created a top-grade healing potion. Now the pressure is completely on Ihan. and he doesn't disappoint the expectations of Master Jin Kongzi. The potion in his hand emits a dazzling glow. The recovery potion of near divinity instantly comes into being. Everyone was stunned when they saw this. He removed the potions of the two. The difference was immediately clear. Ihan pushed his glasses with disdain and said, "Is this the potion you made, old master?" "Humph, it doesn't seem all that great. Old man, take your potion. Is this all you've got?" At this moment, the two were in a frenzy in the center. The Medicine King thought it was just luck. He wanted to try again. Ihan wasn't backing down. "Old man, go ahead and look down on me again." However, some time passed. The Medicine King shouted, "I'm so lucky, but the goddess of luck will never smile at you 3 times in a row." And then it happened again. The Medicine King was crushed once more. The Sword Saint couldn't stand it anymore. "Enough, Medicine King. You look pathetic now. It's impossible, not this time. I'll definitely crush that rookie's luck with my experience." Looking at the crazed Medicine King, the Sword Saint said apologetically, "My lady, it seems you truly are the strongest alchemist. It was my mistake not to immediately believe the Death King. You must often have headaches because of your friend, right? Well, although his potions aren't as good as yours, they're not entirely useless." Just then, the Baroness quickly rushed forward, and grabbed Ihan's hands, urgently saying, "Please sign with me immediately. I'll give you an exclusive contract, with the best treatment in the world. You can even pet my cat. So, what do you think?" Everyone else also. Everyone rushed forward to flatter Ihan. I yelled, "Wait a minute, listen to me first. Those who want to trade medicine with me, go find the Death King first. Except for the paladins currently under contract with me. Everyone else needs to get the Death King's approval. Only then will I sell my medicine." Jin Kongzi also said, "Let's clear the demonic record first. In that case, your participating characters are confirmed, right? One last emphasis for this work. If you die in the apocalypse, you will also die in reality. There's only one way to escape, and that is to overcome the interruption crisis, and reach the true ending. As for what the correct ending is, it is up to each of you to judge." "Very well, then please transport us to the Tiansha 10 paths immediately." However, just at that moment, the little brother of the poisonous snake spoke up, "Master, aren't you going?" Confucius was momentarily stunned. He almost forgot about this fanatic martial arts enthusiast. Venom burst into laughter. "You haven't forgotten about me, have you?" But inside, he was freaking out. "Damn that brat! Who said I'm going?" Seeing Venom's performance, the disciples cupped their hands and bowed. "Boss, you're awesome." The Sword Saint and Venom locked eyes. Tension filled the air. Only one can prevail. "Heh, I could throw the match on purpose and lose. That way, the disciples will accept it." But at this moment, the paladin spoke to the Sword Saint. "Could you give up your position this time?" The old man thought for a moment and said, "No problem. Recently, I want to maintain some of my face. Venomous snake, I'll let you have the position this time." "Damn it, old man, you're not that kind of person, are you?" "No, I don't want to go." At this moment, the paladin and the dark witch are as if bathed in spring breeze. The Sword Saint, the old man, is actually starting to change slowly. Then, the King of Death, the poisonous snake, the apothecary, and the alchemist. These 4 will become the newly introduced characters in the Chronicles of the Demon King. When you all open your eyes again, the scene will be a disruption in the serialization of the Chronicles of the Demon King. 10 days ago, I asked everyone to let me see a beautiful ending. This is a martial arts world event, where martial arts are revered. But now, only one man and one woman are left in this world, and they are still fighting to the death in this freezing, snowy land. 2 hours ago, Jin Kongzi just arrived in this world of Heavenly Demon Chronicles. It's snowing heavily here. It looks like the end of the world. Jin Kongzi quickly circulated his spiritual energy to resist the cold. But Yao Wang and Ihan hadn't learned to cultivate spiritual energy. The two of them shivered, buffeted by the biting wind. Seeing this startling, Kongzi quickly had the venomous snake administer medicine, and he extended a helping hand to the proprietress. In the next instant, they were enveloped in red spiritual energy. Ihan was a little embarrassed at this moment, but Confucius Jin casually said, "We are here to save the world. Now is not the time to worry about such things. We must do everything we can to save everything here. Right now, we can use spiritual artifacts to protect everyone. But when treating the infectious disease, we'll need both of you to step forward." And the records of the heavenly demon mentioned that due to the sudden outbreak of a strange disease, the demons died of disease, and then everyone else died because of it. But it never said the snow would be this heavy. Now we have to figure out the rest ourselves. What exactly caused the end of the world? Suddenly, Ihan pointed into the distance. "Everyone, I think I see a lot of people." "Good, let's go take a look." The scene felt strange, though. There was no sound coming from that direction at all. Could it be that the snow is falling too heavily? The crowd approached and was shocked by the scene before them. They were stunned. Why are these people frozen in place? Looking at the frozen crowd ahead, Ihan quickly put on her gloves. I ran to the zombies and started examining them. These seem to actually be humans. Time of death is approximately 2 years and 3 months. Cause of death is infection by a special disease. This is really strange. They're all standing. Yi Han observed. Someone probably deliberately moved them here. Jin Gongzi opened his quest window. The window was completely grayed out. Just as everyone was puzzled, a burst of laughter suddenly came from the distance. Shu Yu, prepare to bid farewell to the righteous martial arts world. Bullshit. Your demonic cult's evil ghost squad is already dead. Do you think you can stop me alone? Shu, let's approach quietly. Look at you, you damn hag. Protecting the world. Die, Jin Gongzi. Everyone was dumbfounded. Come on, let me see what the righteous sects have left. You hag, I'll split your head in two. The two of them pulled out 2 twigs, preparing to fight. The heavenly demon mocked Axe Moon Immortal. Where's your axe? You're so loud. This is different, it's a twig. This is a vine. The verbal battle ended. The two of them began preparing to fight to the death. Just then, a cloud drifted across the sky, quickly blocking out the sunlight. You old hag, didn't you say today was a nice day? I'm doing divination. Of course, sometimes it's inaccurate. What, do you think I have the eye of the sky? Confucius was shocked, and everyone was puzzled. Why did they suddenly stop fighting? In the next moment, a crowd appeared behind everyone. Yi Han's hair stood on end in an instant. Everyone turned around to look. I'll take over. What are all these things? The so-called super infectious disease. Is it the zombie virus? Have you ever seen flying zombies? This couple is being chased by countless zombies. All this is just because they came to the zombie nation of the martial arts world. Countless martial arts zombies are chasing us. The Medicine King is yelling about the end of the world. I didn't see any of these things in the valley. Young Master Jean turned and chopped off a zombie's head. This world is already doomed. And these zombies, you have to decapitate them to stop them. Heavenly Demon and Crescent Axe Immortal exchanged glances. Old bones. It seems like my eyes aren't working too well. I actually see 4 living human beings. Could it be that the King of Hell is calling me? At this moment, young Master Jean shouted to Yi Han, hurry up and escape, both of you. By the way, could you tell us where we should run to? Are they really alive? Or have we already died? Jin Gongzi and the poisonous snake don't care. He directly picked up the 2 of them and started fleeing. The demon asked in Jin Gongzi's arms, did you come from the outer regions? But before Jin Gongzi could respond, a zombie army suddenly descended from the sky. How the hell do I have zombies flying in the sky? This is a unique creation for this story. Even the likes of Qin Gong Yong never forgot their martial arts, even after death. Upon hearing this, Jin Gongzi was completely stunned. Can zombies still use martial arts? This looks like some kind of flying hack. The venomous snakes here are also surrounded by danger. We almost got blasted into the air just now. Jin Gongzi quickly asked, these zombies don't have any weaknesses, do they? Tian Monv pointed to the sky. As long as they are exposed to sunlight, they will stop. Jin Gongzi turned to the 2 ladies and said, sorry, you'll have to find a way to land on your own. After speaking, he immediately threw the 2 of them out. After they landed, a pair of feet and a person appeared in the snow. Turning around from the snow pit, Jin Gongzi looked at the zombie horde behind him. He gripped his sword with both hands, taking a defensive stance. In the next moment, he drew out the holy sword. Raising the holy sword high, it emitted a brilliant glow. The zombies in the air fell one by one. They crashed to the ground, landing in the snow. Is everyone alright? At this moment, Yi Han, her face swollen and bruised, responded, I'm fine. It's just that my face hurts a bit. Then, Jin Gongzi saw the group of people from the market. They had to resolve this while they couldn't move. Otherwise, the demon from behind stopped him. First, thank you for saving me. But I can't let you do this. Because those guys are all talents of our demonic sect. Jin Gongzi was completely dumbfounded. At this moment, the old man in white also spoke. I am Yi Xian, leader of the Martial Arts Alliance and Mingjiao's protector. The heavenly demon and I have been fighting for 989 days. We swore to heaven that before one of us is defeated, neither of us can leave this place. Although those people have become zombies, but as long as they use the demonic martial arts, they are disciples of the demonic cult. I must protect them. If someone must be killed, please kill those white-robed monks. Nonsense. They are righteous sects. No one can kill them easily. And so, the 2 of them started another round of insults. Confucius Jean was very confused at this point. The world is ending, and you're still fighting a battle between good and evil. The order is wrong. We were in the middle of a great battle, when the world itself began heading towards destruction. And before defeating him, I cannot fall. Jin Gongzi looked at the 2 who insisted on their beliefs. He silently thought to himself, then, this battle that had lasted for 989 days, will be ended by me. The man had just crossed into another world. When he was chased by a group of flying zombies, he thought he would die there. But instead, he encountered 2 peculiar people while escaping. They learned the weakness of the zombies and were saved. But at this point, these 2 oddballs started fighting again. Both of them are martial arts experts. Yet they are poking each other with these 2 little wooden sticks. They're mumbling names of moves like Heaven Demon Lord's Spiritual Division, Yellow Moon Breaking Sky Sword. But to Jean Kongzi, it looked like two elementary school kids fighting, pulling each other's hair. And there were ordinary moves like poking eyes and blocking. But at this moment, Jindy stroked his chin. These two have smooth breathing and techniques. In my opinion, they are truly top experts. That eye-poking attack actually contains the essence of the dragon's skill, and the block contains the divine power of the Buddha's descent. But they fight like children playing pretend. Each move and technique lacks true meaning. At this point, the snake also understands their battle, and praises both of them. Such petty tricks. See how Golden Lad is mocking him with utter disdain. Other people's judgment is clearly better than yours. Ihan also looked at Viper suspiciously. This really does look like a children's fight. The Medicine King, nearly frozen to death, angrily rebuked them. When are you two going to stop fighting? Don't you see someone standing right here? Your narrow perspective really reminds me of my younger self. At this moment, Jianma and Fuexian barely stopped. This is certainly not the way of Daika. So everyone was invited to their residence. After some time of traveling, Jean Kongzi saw the other two gasping for breath. He simply carried them on the back of the poisonous snake. Soon, they arrived at a cave. There is a sunset pouring into the cave, and a hot spring where they can bathe. The demon lord let them bathe first. They went to find some food to entertain everyone. However, after some time, everyone looked at the pills in their hands. They swallowed them whole. But the taste was really hard to swallow. You guys don't just eat this every day, do you? Yes, almost every day. I've been living on Bigu pills for over 2 years now. I can't stand it for another day. The Medicine King took out various ingredients, cooking wine to remove the fishy smell, stir-frying over high heat. After a flurry of furious activity, a Michelin 3-star meal appeared in an instant. The Medicine King immediately served a bowl for Fuexian. Young people need to eat well. This way, their bodies can hold up. Confucius Jean also picked up his bowl and began to taste. The sensation that invaded my taste buds is the best food I have ever eaten. Ihan and the demoness Tian also marveled. Such excellent cooking skills. Are you a royal chef? Yao Wang waved his hand proudly. I'm an expert when it comes to food. After the satisfying meal, Tian and Mo started asking, why are you all here? Has the northern wilderness found a cure for the zombie disease? Ihan and Jean Kongzi exchanged glances. I hope you're fine. We are also looking for a solution. Is that really the case? Over the years, all the doctors and Taoists in the world have been busy with this illness. But in the end, it's all been in vain. Confucius Jean, however, directly pointed and said, this is our pharmacist, and the chef who just made the meal. They are both top-tier experts. If you two could help us, we might be able to develop a cure. So the group went to the depths of the cave, where a wooden coffin suddenly appeared before their eyes. After they opened it together, they found a Jiangshi, its body riddled with iron nails, lying quietly inside. He was once a martial arts prodigy, the head of Wudong. But now his body was sealed in the coffin, pierced with steel nails. All of this is due to the outbreak of the zombie virus in the martial arts world. At this moment, Jean Kongzi and his group were observing the zombie in the coffin. Just then, Tianma directly pulled out the iron nail from the zombie's throat. In the next second, the zombie suddenly let out a roar. Ni Han was so frightened that she fell to the ground. At this moment, Tianma said, as you can all see, as long as the pressure point between the head and spine is blocked, it can immobilize the zombies. But this is only a temporary measure, not a cure. Those bitten by zombies will have a dampening energy spread throughout their body through their acupoints and meridians. Neither breath control exercises nor meditation can expel it. Even top experts like the old Taoist priest. One bite and they're finished. And once bitten, the body becomes as hot as fire. Soon after, you'll turn into a zombie. Among them, the Shaolin monks held out the longest. They remained conscious for over a year after being bitten. So, children from the frontier, do you really have a way to cure it? Ihan and Yao Wang listened to the sounds from behind. It was heavy, almost fatal. It's alright. I'm just happy to see you all. The beds have already been arranged. Anything that needs to be discussed can wait until tomorrow. Night soon fell. Everyone gradually drifted off to sleep. But at this moment, Confucius couldn't fall asleep, because there was something he needed to confirm personally. He silently pulled up the blanket. Just after two figures passed by, he suddenly got up and looked toward the water pool. The two were instantly startled. Why are you still awake? Confucius immediately spoke, saying, I thought something was odd when we first met. It's such a cold day. Yet you two are dressed so lightly. You clearly can use your internal energy skillfully, but your fighting is a mess. There's only one explanation. You're using your internal energy for something else. You've been bitten by the zombies, haven't you? You're using a great deal of internal energy to suppress the infection. At this moment, the demonic creature rose directly from the water. It seems the old man has been discovered. Then let this child see. The two took off their clothes, revealing large areas of corpse transformation on their backs. But you were wrong about one thing. We are not suppressing it, but it blocked the cervical vertebra acupoints, trapping the dampness in one area. Hearing this, Jiandi Hanmao addressed Confucius. You should know about the Kaiyujian, odd encounter sword, right? Using internal energy to surround and control it, making it fly freely. So, using internal energy to block the cervical vertebra acupoints. It means that everything below the neck will be paralyzed. They then use their internal energy like a magic sword, to move their entire body. Whether it's the heartbeat, or the breathing of the lungs, every muscle movement, even the pupils, it's as if they're functioning 24 hours a day, to issue a warning. That's why they run out of energy after taking just a few steps. They really are two madmen. The Demon King said at this moment, this is how we fight the battle to seal the demons. And just like that, 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. Then the three of them returned to the snow once again. They looked down at the disciples below, who were starting their daily battle preparations. They moved their respective underworlds. And as Confucius said, the 5 of us in the Jianghu, when we decided who we would become, we also decided how we would die. Everyone dies someday, but we don't want to die like this. Assassinated, massacred, even caught in a trap. Betrayed by our own trusted subordinates. Or die in a duel with the rising stars. But dying the way we are now, we can't accept it. Aren't you curious how we've lasted this long? We just want to die the way we wish. Then the two of them struck their poses. Another round of fighting began. They used all kinds of street fighting moves. Jean Kongzi watched the two fighting and became lost in thought. This can't go on. This is an insult to both of them. I need to use my own method to clean up this mess for the world. Time quickly passed to evening. Viper looked at the three of them and asked, where did you go? Ihan also turned around and looked at them. Tianhua didn't want to pay them any attention. Just go back and rest. Jean Kongzi looked at Ihan and asked, any progress on the treatment? Ihan wiped his glasses and said, it will take at least 100 days. Maybe we won't be able to do it at all. Jean Kongzi flashed a sunny smile and said, boss lady, don't worry, there will be a way. So please, put aside all distractions. Believe in yourself. Okay, I promise. I will find a way to solve all the problems. The once famous alchemist city lord is finally going to get serious this time. He directly asked the medicine king to be his subordinate. At first, the old man disagreed, but he immediately pulled out a skill card and showed it to the medicine king. You know, as an alchemist, it's taboo to reveal your skills. But he looked at the medicine king provocatively. The medicine king slapped this little punk, but he remained unmoved. Finally, the medicine king succumbed to his aura, and they began their virus research. After getting down to work, he directly told Jean Kongzi to leave. His breathing was disturbing their work. The expelled Jean Kongzi went to the face wall. After making a horizontal mark on it, he followed everyone out. Day after day passed. Every day, they had to move the wandering zombies. This was the only way they could continue their battle between good and evil. 4 days later, they brought back some more test subjects. Then it was 5 or 7 days. Ihan and Medicine King were studying tirelessly. The 8th day was sure to be a heavy snow day, not suitable for going out for a final battle. The heavenly demon was telling Jean Kongzi about their experiences. Originally, 3 years ago, the demon sect still had 1,000 fighters, and the old man's righteous sect has the same number. But because snowy days like this are becoming more and more frequent, many zombies are wandering further and further away, until they're completely lost. I think you're afraid of this, aren't you? You wake up. And the people who were still on the snowy ground yesterday are gone. But I think there's something you're even more afraid of. Lord Tianmo, your inner strength isn't limitless. So when will yours run out? You're using your inner strength to bolster morale now, but you can't keep this up forever. You're such a sensitive child. I guess you only have a few days left. Without inner strength, the last 2 parts of the body can no longer move. Yeah, I am really afraid of having no internal energy. Right now, only my heart and Dantian are intact. Other areas have long been abandoned due to insufficient internal energy. Another day has passed. The Heavenly Demon and the Martial Arts Alliance leader are lying on the ground. At this moment, the Martial Arts Alliance leader turns over. With tears streaming down his face, he said to the Demon of Heaven, my body can't move anymore. Once the invincible leader of the martial arts world, now he cries bitterly, drained of all his inner strength. This is because he was infected with the zombie virus. Without inner strength, he can no longer maintain his human form. At this moment, Ihan was examining the old man on the ground. After standing up, he said, I'm sorry. The heavenly demon glared darkly at the fallen Yuxian on the ground. He shouted, get up. Sorry, little girl. I'm leaving now. I don't want your apology. Get up. Wulin Alliance leader, Fury Moon Immortal. Didn't you promise me you would challenge the demonic world and raise the banner of the righteous Wulin? How can you just die in your sickbed? Pick up your weapon. Stand up. Now, countless black auras emanated from the heavenly demon, but at this moment, Fury Moon Immortal could only apologize. I wanted to hold on for another day, but I'm tired. I'm only holding on with my innate chi now. You could probably last another year. But this is the end for me, so kill me. I don't want to end up like those Shaolin monks. The heavenly demon crouched down. quietly watching him. Just like you are now, so weak you can't even tie up a chicken. I will grant your wish. After saying that, he pulled out a large axe. Old man, you remember this axe, don't you? If you say the martial world has forgotten its heroes, lost me, then I will kill you immediately. And for Master Fu Yu, this sentence meant the demise of the righteous martial arts world. At this moment, Master Fu Yu was in tears. I'm so sorry, so sorry. Su Baixiang, I can't say it. In the next second, the heavenly demon swung his axe down, but this blow didn't kill Master Fu Yu. Then he left, looking lost and dejected. His world was now a blank canvas. Day 9 arrived. Ihan studied this unique pattern. Finally, she compiled her research findings. Jean Comsey picked it up and started to memorize it. Although I've researched with all my might, I can't develop a cure. If only I had 90 more days. Just at this moment, a pressure suddenly appeared in the cave. Corrupt Moon Immortal instantly began to struggle. The heavenly demon mocked from behind. How pathetic. Once the human skin is lost, you are like a beast, eating day after day, until your body can no longer move. Wu ultimately forgot about the hero. He said, as he directly reached his hand into the zombie's mouth. Eat, eat. Everything is over. The heavenly demon looked at his blood-stained hands. He was completely engulfed in despair. Countless black gases erupted from his body. He looked at the terrified people. Die, you traitors. With a flash, he decapitated Axe Moon Immortal. He charged towards Golden Confucius and the others. Viper instantly drew his blade to block. Looking at the heavenly demon consumed by madness, Viper roared at Golden Confucius to run. Ihan clung tightly to Golden Confucius, the king of death. I believe that in the end, only the heavenly demon was left standing in the snow, and Confucius also entered the space of death. He began to receive the punishment of death, and experienced the tragic childhood of the heavenly demon. The girl shouted loudly for her mother in the heavy snow, but her mother abandoned her. Only because her constitution was special, bringing misfortune to those close to him. As he silently lay in the snow, peacefully awaiting death. Suddenly, a light appeared before him. An elderly woman with white hair appeared in front of him, holding a cane. She looked at the girl lying in the snow, waiting for death, and pulled her up. She looked at the girl who had been lying in the snow for days yet was still alive. I can't help but sigh. Were you born with a body of ice and snow? Is this the exceptional physique mentioned in the records? Child, what's your name? You don't know. How old are you? You don't know. Then why were you buried in the snow? You can't remember anything. How pitiful. Do you wish to follow me? I will provide food and shelter for you. At this moment, the girl nodded furiously. Then I'll call you by Xiang. From today on, you are a member of the Devil Sect. 2 days later, Su Baixiang arrived at the Devil Sect settlement. There were many other children like him here. He can live freely here. Eat whenever he wants. Play whenever he wants. He doesn't have to do anything. So, are they trying to turn us into slaves here? Idiot, I've been here for a year and nothing like that has happened. Baixiang listened quietly from the side. He put down the spoon in his hand. He asked everyone who was eating, how did you all end up here? Everyone was staring at him. My mom works in the land of spring flowers. The harvest was poor. At night, the uncle with a knife slaughtered the village. Everyone calmly shared their tragic experiences. At this moment, Baixiang remembered. I ended up here because my grandfather kept hitting me. Are you happy now? Yes, very happy. These children haven't realized yet that this is not a paradise. This is a place that breeds poison. From then on, at mealtime, we no longer saw Baixiang's figure. He worked alongside the farmers every day. I never played with anyone else again. At this moment, the white-haired old woman came up behind Baixiang. It's been a long time. Baixiang, I have something I want to ask you. I heard you helped the farmers so you could harvest your own grain. And you sewed your own clothes and quilts. Why did you do that? If you're willing, I can give you a prosperous life. This is Peach Blossom Village. The adults farm and harvest fruit for us. But in Maoshire at the foot of the mountain, the magistrate killed his 2 daughters, and Chui of the orchard lost his 2nd son. He lost his eldest son when he went to the county office. They buried their sons in their hometown, and so I came here. Those farmers all have their own sorrows. This isn't paradise. They don't provide for us out of stupidity. They hope we will avenge them. They're powerless to take revenge themselves. I heard you've been practicing martial arts since childhood. That's why he achieved such mastery. We started cultivating the children. So we aren't being housed and fed for free. We will avenge them against the world. That's why we're here. White-haired old woman, slightly sweating, Baixiang, do you have anything you want to say to the world? Yes, a lot. Then the world should listen to you. Let me introduce myself properly. I am one of the 7 elders of this sect. My name is Mofo. This man was just brutally killed, but after he was resurrected, he knelt before his enemy to pay respects. All of this is because of the skill gained by Jean Comsey. It just happened. He returned to the death space once again. At this moment, he stood up and asked the Sword Emperor beside him, are the apothecary's documents ready? Yeah, they're pretty much done. The ones I memorized and the ones you memorized are about the same. Then let's start choosing skills. He then saw the celestial demon's demon heavenly skill. This martial art is the one we saw earlier, right? It's really a typical demonic skill. This matter can be explained to Confucius Gene. Whether it's magic or martial arts, it's just a different perspective on the world. The so-called righteous sect is for self-cultivation, while the demon sect becomes the pawn that destroys the world. Let me give a simple example. Cut from top to bottom. This is the upward cut of the righteous martial arts, known as the tiger's pounce. But demonic power is different. They would say this. Think back to the anger you felt when the thief stabbed you in the abdomen. Think of the moment when your sister was humiliated by the trap. Remember how vulnerable you were at that time. Reflect on your helplessness. Curse this cruel world. The pawns that destroy the world. In simple terms, the magic practitioner's momentum is overwhelming. You don't need to learn this. But what Jiandi never expected was, he spoke so much, but Jean Kongzi directly told him he wanted to learn. Jiandi instantly became anxious. Could it be that you're going to be deceived by that demon lord? This is insane. That was just a strike he unleashed before dying. So you're angry because I didn't learn your martial arts? What? I'm not. Don't worry, our Sword Emperor's martial arts are the best in the world. I only learned this demonic technique to perfectly conquer this stage. Even if I develop a cure, I can only save those two. Everyone else has been dead for 2 years. Even a cure won't bring them back to life. So, they'll become the new Adam and Eve. For a happy ending, the cure is just the first step, and time goes back to when they first met. Young Master Jean is directly kneeling before the heavenly demon. He actually wants to become the heavenly demon's disciple. The heavenly demon is shocked. Impossible, absolutely impossible. Hey, demon lord. Don't be so stingy. A child from beyond the borders has traveled thousands of miles to seek a master. This is truly a rare and valuable thing. Why are you looking so serious? Kid, how about you make me your master? I am the martial arts leader, Nangong Yun. But Confucius completely ignored me. Why can't I be accepted as his disciple? Lord Demon King. Nangong Yun was instantly petrified. He actually ignored me completely. But the heavenly demon said, didn't I just say, that only children abandoned by the world can join the cult? But times have changed. We are all people abandoned by the world. Besides, I'm an orphan raised by Hunter Tower. Alright, since you're so confident, show me the 3 talents sword technique. Let me see for myself if you have the potential to inherit our cult's martial arts. Confucius stood up and bowed. He directly activated the skill he had just acquired. The skill activated the heavenly demon divine art. At this moment, countless moves appeared in his mind. But right now, they were just moves. He began to mimic these sword techniques, imagining the core of the demonic art that the Sword Emperor had explained to him. He sighed, lamenting the cruelty of this world. And so, Jean Kongzi began his counterattack. Imagine the witch's malice burning. Imagine 5 losing 0. But just as his killing intent was at its peak, Tianma yelled at him to stop. But Jean Kongzi was still immersed in his malice. Then Tianma roared, didn't I tell you to stop? What is all this nonsense? Have you ever seen a zombie that knows the 18 dragons subduing palms? At this moment, a zombie is giving Jean Kongzi a beating. All because he was caught by the zombie not liking his video. It turns out that after Jean Kongzi demonstrated the 3 talents sword technique, the heavenly demon brought him to learn the first move of the starving ghost retention sword technique. He directs from the side, don't swing your sword randomly. Think about the suffering of a starving ghost. However, the zombie gave no chance. It bit immediately. Jean Kongzi quickly dodged. He rolled away, but the zombie attacked again. It gave Jean Kongzi no time to think about his hunger. Tianmo watched him in a sorry state. He said, think about it, how long did you feel hungry when you were starving? What did you want to eat most back then? How long were you hungry for? 3 or 4 days, something like that. You've only been hungry for 3 days at most in your life. The world has been in chaos for a long time. Years of famine. If you weren't from a noble family, you couldn't have only been hungry for 3 days. I'm speechless. Hunger is the most urgent feeling. If you can't even feel this, how could you understand the heavenly demon divine art? It's my fault. I actually believed you, you slick-talking bastard. With that, the heavenly demon turned and left. At this moment, Jean Kongzi shouted, wait, but the zombie paid him no mind and kept walking. Jean Kongzi returned to the death space once again. Jiandi mocked, with your 9-year compulsory education level, you'll never be able to master this. Then don't blame me for using my ultimate move. Time rewound to 1 day earlier. Jean Kongzi immediately ran out of the cave alone. He quickly arrived at a deserted cave and began to meditate. Jiandi scratched his head. Are you planning to starve to death here? Yes, I want to master the heavenly demon divine art. I saw that in the shadow of the heavenly demon, he once starved for 111 days. So I want to surpass him by going for 112 days. The sword points outside, look, it's so cold outside. You want to starve for 112 days? Before you even get there, you'll freeze to death. Then I'll just starve for 15 days. then continue the repetitive cycle. The insight is utterly speechless. Does this madman really want to become a disciple? A week passed by quickly. The first 1 or 2 days were the hardest, but after getting through the third day, the pain began to slowly fade away. The internal organs started to fail. My mind became hazy. My body began to wither away. Just then, I stood up, and started swinging my sword. The battle spy asked, puzzled, "What are you doing?" "I'm exercising." I misunderstood before. The hunger described by the demon is not about not eating. It's not about fasting or meditative practices. It's the feeling of wanting to eat but being unable to. In this past week, I've thought of a farmer. No farmer would ever go without working the fields, and not tend to the crops every day. He clearly knows there will be no gain, but he persists every day, because he has a wife and children. Every day, he peels bark from trees, but he cannot eat it. He has to give it to his wife and children. Jean Kongzi swings his sword with all his might, silently imagining the farmer's hunger. Feel the hunger. Fight. All your sword techniques come from the hands of hunger. And so, he swings one after another. Imagine the gestures of the hungry, the hunger etched deep into the bones. He swings the sword, holding on to his last bit of reason. Thus, the first form of the heavenly demon divine skill, Die of Hunger sword technique, is officially completed. Now, it's time to seek a master. Do you know how far a man will go for a woman? This skinny young man was vigorous and spirited just 15 days ago, but now he's completely possessed by a hungry ghost. He endured reincarnation just to gain the favor of a demon. Jean Kongzi had the evil ghost gather 112 hungry ghosts. He wants to use these 112 people to understand the true meaning of hunger. Jean Kongzi took off his clothes. He roared at the zombie horde, "Come on!" But before he was ready, a zombie bit into his shoulder. Then countless zombies swarmed him. Jean Kongzi finally reached the starving ghost's life. He saw the old man who starved to death on the boat, and the children struggling to survive. They dug clay from the ground. Then they would make it into flat cakes and dry them on the ground. Finally, they'd sprinkle a handful of coarse salt on top. It would become the survival ration they ate, although it was extremely unpalatable, and could only be eaten slowly by licking. For them, it was the hope of staying alive. At this point, the punishment ended. Jean Confucius slowly opened his eyes. I was thinking about how to learn to boil tree bark, but reality had surpassed my imagination. He started digging hard in the snow. Finally, he dug down to the clay layer. He started to learn how to make drawing tools. Finally, he picked one up and tasted it. It's really disgusting. He held his forehead, looking at his hand on the ground. Finally, he picked up his sword again. It's time to go back and show the heavenly demon my sword. You, defeat that zombie. I'll accept you as my inner disciple. Feel the hunger. Go, fight. After saying this, Jean Confucius charged downwards. The hand holding the sword feels the gesture of the hungry one. The taste of earth is in the mouth. The gesture has the texture of earth. With a single strike, Master Jean Kongzi chopped the zombie in half. The demon lord watched as the starving death flow sword technique was unleashed. He was immediately stunned. At this moment, Master Jean Kongzi knelt on one knee. "My lord, demon lord. So, next, please call me sword master." So the two of them came to the cave again. The demonic arts originally had 9 sets. What you demonstrated was the first stance of the starving wanderer swordsmanship. After that are deadly moves. Child of the frontier, your starving wanderer swordsmanship is quite good. Just at this moment, Jean Kongzi called out to him. "What you just said was pretty good. Alright, I admit your demonstration was excellent, but don't get too carried away, showing off everywhere. So, does that mean I'm now your closed-door disciple? Don't talk nonsense. From now on, I will teach you martial arts. You need to focus." It seems the demon lord has already considered me his disciple, but he's refusing to officially take me as his disciple. Immediately, terrified, Zizi opened the demon lord's character window. Favorability, 2.5 stars. At that moment, he thought to himself, should I decide to take him as my disciple now? No, my battle isn't over yet. At the end of life, what's the point of wanting a disciple? This is excessive desire. Jean Confucius observed the inner thoughts of the heavenly demon, and couldn't help but make a silent vow. Survive. Even if the world perishes, the martial world will have only you. I still hope you can live. I hope I can be your reason to live. At this moment, the heavenly devil opened his eyes, and looked at the golden Confucius before him. Have you been listening to me? Of course, I've been listening. Good. Since you're so confident, you can go take the test. Having said that, he went off alone to pick a zombie. At that moment, a voice suddenly came from the surroundings. I really want to challenge him. This kind of guy dares to call himself a sky demon. If it were in my time, I would have beaten him so badly, he'd call himself a earth demon. I really envy that kid, the Wooling Alliance leader. A life or death battle can take place on the snow. And when Master Jean Kongzi heard this, he fell into deep thought. The landlady makes medicinal treatments, and I become a disciple of the heavenly demon, but it feels like something is missing. It seems like there's no final resolution. Suddenly, Master Jean Kongzi thought of something. He stood up directly and waved at Sword Emperor. Lord Sword Emperor, there is something I need to ask of you. After saying this, Jinma carried a zombie back. In this battle, you must carry both thirst and pain in your heart. With that, the zombie attacked again. Soon, the terrified Ziyang returned. And then, he came back again. He directly handed the research notes to the two alchemists. Then he once again entered the desolate cave. He used the 100 ghost summon again. He ordered the evil spirits to search for the corpses of those who died from thirst, and also instructed them to find both the demonic sect and righteous people. The evil spirit looked at the master in surprise. Are you going to revive them? Are these people of any use? Of course, in the world on the brink of destruction, there are still two people fighting with one heart. I want to prepare for a true battle between good and evil. A man, in order to save this world on the verge of collapse, has experienced hundreds and thousands of cycles of death, all just to learn the Sky Tower divine art, so that the last two people in this world might have a chance to survive. As Jean Kongzi faces multiple life and death experiences again, he finally grasped the true meaning of the mortal flowing sword. Facing the zombie flying towards him again, Jean Kongzi used the water splashing sky technique, instantly causing the zombie's body to explode and fall. Then, with a stylish landing, he completed the trial. From then on, the heavenly demon's attitude towards him completely changed. From initially turning away without a word, now, I look at you with new eyes. At this moment, the heavenly demon gazes at Jean Kongzi with eyes full of compassion. I don't see any brilliance in your sword, but I see honesty and integrity. It seems your sword isn't aimed at things, but at this world. The heavenly demon slowly sits down. Let me teach you a heart method. Then, under the heavenly demon's continuous guidance, he finally understood all the truths of the heavenly demon's sword technique. The child who was so hungry he could only eat dirt in his first life died of starvation. Lu Jian's wife, who was so thirsty she could only drink seawater, died in her second life. The father who gave his last breath to his child while holding the dead skin sword in the third life. The baby who drowned in a sword-filled stream and froze to death in his mother's arms in the fourth life, froze to death holding the sword. Watching the rapid progress with fear, the heavenly demon couldn't help but praise, saying, "Child, your sword is truly unparalleled." At that moment, a poisonous snake carried the alliance leader and approached the two. The alliance leader grumbled, "Demon, you haven't received my 9 kowtows yet, have you? I know if you take me as your disciple, the only ship left in the martial world will be the demonic sects. You're just afraid of being indebted to me. That way, you can win the demon subjugation war without fighting." But I anticipated this. He then patted the venomous snake beside him. He said with a smug expression, "From today on, he is my first in command." General Dabiang heard this, and Tianma immediately rushed toward his wife. In the next moment, they were locked in a struggle with the leader. "You old fool, how could you do this to him?" Jean Kongzi and the poisonous snake silently stood aside. "Aren't you the lord of Qinwu sect? How can you seek a master, if you are bowing to him to learn just for your so-called pride? It would be an insult to them." Upon hearing this, the viper immediately grew displeased. "Draw your sword, let the sword confirm it." With that, the two immediately started fighting. One strike, Lu Jian instantly attacked. Viper blocked the attack with all his might. Then he quickly retreated. Just then, Meng Zhu, who was still in the middle of his attack, quickly started instructing Viper. Seeing this, Jianma, who was standing to the side, wasn't about to be outdone, and started giving instructions as well. The reason Jean Kongzi did this wasn't to compete with Viper. He has only one goal. He hopes to gain the approval of the heavenly demon. At this moment, the snake represents the Wulin alliance leader. Jean Kongzi represents the heavenly demon. The two of them are continuously clashing in the snow. Then, the snake directly seizes Jean Kongzi's opening. In an instant, he unleashes his thunderous attack. Thunder strikes Jean Kongzi from all directions. Jean Kongzi suddenly spat out blood. Just as the viper was about to deliver the killing blow, Tianmo roared, "What are you doing? Use the deadly still arrow." Then, Tianma unleashed the third stance of his divine skill, Drowning Sword. At this moment, Tianma and the alliance leader seemed revitalized, as if their lives were filled with color once more. They watched the two Tianmos continue to fight, gradually let go of his guard. After the battle ended, Jean Kongzi knelt before the demon lord. He solemnly said, "My name is Jean Kongzi. Please accept me as your disciple. I am the demon lord. My name is Su Baixiang. Perform the 9 bows of respect. I will take you as my disciple, the last disciple of this life." It is said that in this martial arts world, the highest honor for accepting a disciple is the 9-bow ceremony, and Master Jean Kongzi, through hundreds of deaths, earned the heavenly demon's heart to take a disciple. At this moment, Jean Kongzi follows the heavenly demon into a cave. Jean Kongzi looks around in confusion. "These are the martial arts manuals of our sect. You will perform the 9 prostrations here, but the ceremony won't end with just 9 prostrations. Whether you are accepted or not is entirely up to me. It will continue until I am satisfied. No matter how many times, I can require you to kneel again. Before Jianhua could finish speaking, Jiandi excitedly rushed to the manuals. Confucius, you go and pay your respects to the master first. The heavenly demon excitedly explained the origin of this place. I plundered all of this from those righteous martial arts sects. So the martial arts skills of the world have become spirits here. Then this place could be called the martial arts world. Now, it's time to pay your respects. Kowtow in your own way. Perform the 9 kowtows. Each time, he must carry a different gesture. This corresponds to each move of the heavenly demon divine art. The first bow, hunger. The heavenly demon slightly nods in approval. The second bow, the burden of hunger. The third bow, the burden of drowning. With each bow, Jin Kongzi carries a different emotion. Mastering the heavenly demon divine art, he easily completed the first 4 prostrations. But on the 5th, representing the heart of the deceased, a demonic force stopped him. He was forced to prostrate again. Jin Confucius repeated this over 500 times. On the 6th prostration, the heart of the deceased, he repeated it over 800 times. The 7th prostration, the burial of the deceased, he repeated it more than 500 times. However, during the 8th offering to the burned heart of the deceased, this time he remembered the pain when Emperor Yan killed him. It seemed the heavenly demon sensed something. This time, Jin Kongzi only had to bow once to pass him. Looking at the always consistent, never complaining Jin Kongzi, the heavenly demon couldn't help but sigh inwardly. What an upright child. What kind of life are you really living? It is what makes you so beautiful. Even if those you save are not of high status, and the ones you love are not perfect, you will still maintain your kindness. At this moment, the heavenly demon stands up, and slowly walks towards Confucius Jin. The final strike of this heavenly demon technique is not fixed. The ritual will vary depending on the participant. Perform the 9th bow in your own way. He began to recall the 4,090 times he'd killed himself. His neck ached back then. Trembling hands prolonged the pain. The slower the death, the weaker his resolve became. But because of someone unforgivable, he desperately wanted to live. The 9th bow, suicide. The heavenly devil seemed to sense Jin Kongzi's pain. It gently embraced him. From now on, you are my disciple. From this day forward, wherever you go, you are my, Su Buxiang's, disciple. Even if this world ends, and the martial arts world ceases to exist, I will always be behind you, with you. After saying this, he turned and walked out. Jin Kongzi followed close behind. At this moment, Jin Kongzi opened his character menu again. The affection level above has increased to 4 stars. At this moment, he thought that the remaining power should last for about another year. He must pass everything on to his disciple. At this time, Jiandi happily ran back. The poisonous snake saw the 2 of them walking out. He asked, has the 9 bows ceremony been completed? Yes. So how did Mr. Poison Snake pay respects to his master? I only asked him to teach me. Nothing special happened. I acted like it was no big deal, but I was secretly thrilled. A dying old man, in order to give the heavenly demon a reason to live, even bowed deeply to me. How could I refuse his request? Jin Confucius looked at his character panel, speechless. Just then, Ihan suddenly ran over. It worked. The treatment potion is complete. To save this martial arts world, he endured thousands of death loops, just to create the treatment potion within the limited time. Finally, on the 120th loop, Ihan lived up to everyone's expectations and produced the antidote, Jianhua. He asked urgently, is that true? Yes, we actually finished it yesterday. But I observed it the entire day. We both used the body of the Wudang sect leader to conduct an experiment. The result was successful in curing the infectious disease. It also confirmed the restoration of his lost state. The heavenly demon excitedly took both of Ihan's hands. That's amazing. You are the greatest doctors. Please treat that old man, Fu Yuxian, immediately. At this moment, Ihan spoke up and said, I can do it. But the treatment potion has some flaws. It will require destroying his Dantian. The alliance leader, however, was unfazed. He reassured them, we've already been infected with the zombie virus. It's a miracle that we've made it this far. They certainly should pay the price. Ihan also explained that the 2 of them have been infected with the zombie virus for a long time. What you call internal energy is actually where the pathogen lies, so it's completely indistinguishable from the body's dampness. The lower Dantian, in particular, is severely affected. To treat it, this part must be removed. Simply put, it's a surgery to completely remove the lower Dantian. There's no need to worry. The old gentleman is an expert in this field. At this moment, the alliance leader and the heavenly demon exchanged glances. I agree to undergo the surgery. I'm going to lose my inner strength anyway. There's nothing to regret. We martial artists. Martial arts exist in our hearts. As long as we have the will, martial arts will always exist. A night passes quickly. The demon stands in the snow at dawn. Has the surgery result come out? Yes, everything is fine. This is the first ray of sunlight at dawn. I, your master, once wanted to sever the heavens.